suit guy. Hard erect penis, Mom!
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott.
That's me.
Mm-hmm.
And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Share.
Hey, finger guns.
Finger guns.
Yeah.
Kapow, pow, pow, pew.
I'm feeling cool
Pew,
like
pew,
Fonzie
pew.
today.
Anything make you angry?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I'm as mad as hell!
You've never seen me very upset.
Lord Jesus! Lord Jesus!
I don't have, like, surface anger. Like, I can't bring the heat on this topic. But this whole James Dean starring in a movie thing, it's troubling to me. Plenty of stars have come out. Chris Evans, Elijah Wood, I almost said Little Hobbit. Plenty of actors have come out and said, no, this should not be a thing. The defense from the filmmakers is laughable on two fronts. One, we have the blessing of his estate, which from what little digging I did is like children of one of his cousins.
That's who's running his estate at this point?
That's what I read.
Wow.
And I like my cousins, but I don't want their children making decisions on what happens to Jeremy created intellectual property after Jeremy dies.
Yes.
It's not as though we've got James Dean's wife who's like, he always wanted to star in a movie 50 years after his death. No, it's just...
That's totally her, by the way.
Yeah, I know. That's what she sounds like. You can, and so you decided to. Then the other bald-faced lie is the filmmaker saying, we thought about every actor. This is the only actor that can play this role, which is... Well, that's a fucking lie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe that they're trying to skate by with that as their excuse. Like, he was so uniquely talented. Only he possesses the range of whatever, but we can then digitize that. Like, then if he's not the only one that can do it if you're going to create him out of thin air.
What is the project? Do you even know what the project is? Like, what's the movie?
I don't know. I haven't read that
I haven't
far.
drilled down that far either.
Now, I remember, you guys might not remember this, there was a commercial, I feel like it was 15, 20 years ago, where they used footage of Fred Astaire dancing with like a modern-day mop or vacuum or something, and there was all this outcry.
Yeah.
That was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And because the technology, the both the de-aging and this fucking deepfake shit, where every other day there's some viral deepfake where it's, now look at what Magnum P.I. would have looked like as Indiana Jones because we've deepfaked his face over Harrison Ford's.
Yeesh.
Or
that actually exists, right?
Yes, or the Bill Hader one where they morph him into Tom Cruise or whatever.
Yeah.
First of all, I think that's a frivolous waste of talent and computing power.
I think so too.
And I don't understand why they're so interesting to people. But this is we're on a slope, and nobody realizes we're sliding down it yet, and we're going to hit the bottom, and people are going to be, what happens if there's no estate? What happens if we dig up a movie star from the 1920s and there's no remaining somebody to give permission?
Well, I mean,
do you when you die, do you now have to add to your will? I do not allow my likeness to be used in future movies.
Yeah, I mean, if it comes to somebody with a lesser name than James Dean, why do it at all, right? It probably would be cheaper to just hire some rando fucking actor and insert that person in there than it would be to do a Gemini Man thing.
But it's a gimmick. It's a gimmick.
Yes, I agree.
I don't care what you have as a script. This movie is about a gimmick.
Yeah.
And you're trying to make money on a dead man.
Yeah. I agree.
The movie's called Finding Jack, and says directors Anton Ernst and Tati Golik obtained the rights to use Dean's image from the late actor's family, they told The Hollywood Reporter. The movie, which is based on the novel of the same name, is set around the abandonment of over 10,000 military dogs. At the end of the Vietnam War, Dean will play a character named Rogan.
Yeah. Couldn't get anybody else to do that.
No,
yeah,
you could.
You're right, though, Jeremy. It's a lie. It's a straight bald-faced lie. You can't. There's no justification for this. There's no role. I mean, even the roles that we can't imagine other people in, that somebody else couldn't play.
Right.
Because someone else always has a different interpretation of something, and they're always, it seems like, how many times do they hit pay dirt with those things? A lot of times it's usually pretty good. You know, it's an absolute lie. They have to say this lie, I think, though.
I agree, because the only other option is we're trying to cash in on technology in a cheap and meaningless way.
People are going to be either curious or hate watch it, right, or both. But you're right. It's a gimmick. It's not that we can't get any other actor. It's that, hey, this is James Dean in digital form.
You know how sometimes a famous author will be like 50 years after they're dead, we found a manuscript that they never published, and then somebody in their family wants to make money, and so they'll publish it. It's like a lost treasure, or the lost book by whoever. This is that.
Yeah.
Only he didn't give this performance and stick it in a can, and somebody came along and found it and put it into a movie. You're now taking a person who's dead, and you're going to manipulate his face to do and say whatever you want. He has no say over that.
Yeah.
So the implications for this are way beyond, like, should we or shouldn't we? It's like, well, let's take Marilyn Monroe, and we'll put her in a movie, and this time with technology, we're going to make her topless. That's icky and wrong, and she has no way to consent to that.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like it's a morally gray area. Hopefully no one will go see it. This will tank and nobody else will try and do it. But I have to believe there's so many hucksters out there, so many people who just want to make a buck, that this is just the beginning. Yeah. And this is going to continue on and on and on.
I got you.
And I'm troubled by it.
That's a good rant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm now troubled.
Yeah.
Although that Steve Buscemi J-Law one was fucking awesome.
But again, it's the same joke every time.
Yes, it is. Yes.
It's let's see what person A would look like in person B's performance. I don't understand why it's perpetually interesting. It should have been interesting once or twice and then died off.
I got you.
Yeah.
What are you angry about?
My rant is not going to be nearly as good as you guys, again, because like I said, I think there's a lot of people out there who would love to hear us talk about driving forever, and that's basically my thing, and just rude ass fucking people all the time. But I don't have, like, it's not week to week. Like, I'll see the James Dean thing and I'll be like, it's fucked up, and I don't have a rant for it. But I would call myself a part-time grammar Nazi. Part-time.
Yep.
Part-time.
Yeah.
On call.
Yeah, definitely not a full-time. Definitely not one of these who's like, you got to be proper about when you say that you feel good, what do you mean by that? Exactly. I'm not one of those people. But there is one thing, and I think I'm going to couch this by saying I think it's smartphone related.
Okay.
People putting apostrophe S on everything.
When they're trying to pluralize
When
it?
they're trying to plural.
Yep.
I went to see the Yankees play. Yankee apostrophe S the other day.
It's already plural.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say Chineses.
And it's just this constant thing that I see on the internet. And I think a lot of times it's people typing stuff in a smartphone, because I've typed stuff in a smartphone and it wants to apostrophe S something.
Sure.
And you're just like, maybe it's the smartphone. Maybe the smartphone, they need to figure out, stop putting apostrophe S on everything. Just let it go. And if they don't want to put the apostrophe there, that's their loss. Most of the time, you don't need it. Most of the time. I would say that it leans that you don't need it. But people put it on everything.
Yeah.
And I can't read something intelligently when that happens. Yeah. And like I said, there are plenty of other things I could get really pissed off about, but that's the one that bothers me the most. I can't figure out why. Yeah. I think it's because it just looks dumb.
It does. It does.
Above all the other things that you can do. Yeah. Misspell words, like accidentally put another word when you meant another word. Like, the apostrophe S always tells me, like, you didn't proofread this, did you?
Look, I mean, this is going to be, I'm not old man yelling at cloud, but when I was in the medical field, I was reading medical records from new residents that would come on who were in their early to mid 20s. and I was talking to an older doctor who was doing the same patient and
Oh, hey.
who was writing up the same patient, and you could tell it's night and day. One is incomplete sentences and paragraphs, and one is shorthand, and not medical shorthand, texting shorthand.
Mm-hmm.
And I was asking him, like, can you read this? Because, I was young back then, and I was like, I can't even really understand this. And he was like, I think this is going to be how it is for medical records and things like that, just because there is a shorthand in the lexicon for smartphones, for communication, for tweeting, for texting, and all that stuff, and it's not going to go away.
Well, the problem, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The problem is, I think that people it's normalized now, where people just think that's how things are written.
Mm-hmm.
So there are people who are reading that now who are learning to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
They see the apostrophe S there for everything. They're like, oh, well, that's how you do that. That's how you do the plural then. That's how I'll write from now on. And now it's getting to the point where it's everybody writes those things. It's just fucking correct it anyway. When
I used to make fun of Southern accents when I first moved here, I used to pluralize stores that don't have S's on the end of their name. I'm going to go to Kroger's, then I'm going to go to Walmart's, I'm going to go to Publix's. Like Wendy's as a brand has an S.
Yes.
And it even has an apostrophe.
Yeah.
But Kroger does not.
Barnes and Nobles does not.
No, but I once argued with somebody about Kroger's because they were talking, it's colloquially, this is how everybody says it. Well, I was like, well, is there an apostrophe there? Well, yes, because Kroger owns the store. It's Kroger's store.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Actually, I was going to bring up a thing. You were talking about shorthand. You remember when I warned that movie called Star Chamber with Michael Douglas, where he's a judge that gets frustrated that people go free, and he joins this underground. By the way, modern Congress people have been referring to things as a star chamber behind closed doors. It's a reference. Never heard of the movie until like a year ago.
Yeah.
Watched a bit of it again the other day, and one of the first cases they take on once he joins this underground court, the guy only walked free because the court stenographer was one of those old school types who used his own shorthand. But he died between the original trial and the appeal trial, and nobody could make heads or tails of any of his notes, so it was waived a mistrial, and the guy went free.
Wow.
Interesting.
I just thought that was fascinating. We're going to get to a point where medical shorthand by one doctor gets you killed by the doctor 4 floors up who doesn't understand it.
We had to page some of these residents and say, like, what did you mean by this?
Yeah.
And that was just in a research context. So I can only imagine in an ER or something where things are critical.
That's it's funny that you brought up the stores and everything. I just saw an interview with Daniel Kaluuya on Colbert. And he's talking about this Queen and Slim movie that he's doing.
Oh yeah.
And he's talking about like how he went to research what his character in Ohio would be doing, and he's like, and he worked at a Costco's, and Daniel Kaluuya is British, and he's like, it's a Costco's. And Colbert's like, well, the name of the store is Costco. And he goes, no, that can't be right. He's like, that's not right. It's Costco's. It's Costco's. And he just kept on, like, he kept saying it without even being corrected. But a lot of people were pointing out that in Great Britain, there's a store that's got a name like Costco's, and it's got an S on the end of it. And they thought that he might be confusing with that one, whatever. But that's just funny how we add S's to things sometimes.
Yeah, it's got such a perfect American accent.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, no shit.
I mean, that, like, we've talked about people who can nail it, but like every once in a while they'll screw up a little bit. It's
just so much easier for British people to do us than it is for us to do them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that in terms of accents and sexually.
I've done my share of British people.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
I have a silly rant. Ooh. Is your rant?
Yeah, it's done.
Silly rant.
Okay. In the context of our thing, you know,
this thing we do.
You remember The Sopranos, where he's like, where Tony is talking to little Stevie, and he's like, you know, we should be recession-proof. And he turns to little Stevie, he's like, what is recession-proof? And little Stevie's like, certain Hollywood movies and our thing. Anyway, our thing, we watch a lot of shit. We watch a lot of movies. We watch a lot of TV. We watch a lot of stuff, right? I can't keep up with all this stuff. I can't keep up with The Mandalorian and The Crown and all the other Netflix stuff and all the other Prime stuff and the Fleabag and the Maisel and the fucking all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, it's okay, Barrett. Everything is fine. You can't watch everything.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go out and hang out like I did with a family, and I'm talking to the dad, and he's like, yeah, man, I watched all that shit. I'm like, how the fuck do you do that? He's got like a normal job. He's got 2 kids, and like he lives an otherwise normal life, goes to work out and shit. How do you have time to see all this shit? I don't get it. I don't understand.
I don't get it either. Well, you don't. And I think that may be sort of their hope, is that because you don't have time, you will begin to ally yourself with one streaming brand over others. Well, I'm going to watch the original Netflix stuff because Stranger Things was awesome. Disney's certainly hoping that. But yeah, I just wait. I wait for it to, if I don't jump on it, like Watchmen on HBO, I have not watched yet.
That's another one.
But I saw Dicer tweeting that it was the best show on TV right now, hands down. And I'm like, well, that's probably true. Dicer's not, he doesn't spread those kind of praisings around. Like, he's pretty even keeled. Now, granted, I still don't have any interest in watching that show. I will eventually because it's apparently great, but I didn't like the movie. Wasn't a big fan of the comic.
Well, and this show doesn't have much to do with the comic.
Well, I keep reading that it both doesn't and does.
It does in the way that they like the look. I've only seen one episode. I don't have time for this shit either. But I watched the first episode, and it has references to the original Watchmen, but I don't think the story.
It's in the same timeline, right? Or like the same
20
canon?
years later.
It's 20 years later because they don't none of those characters are like showing up. Like now, this is the first episode. Like I could be like just now like there's 5 episodes and it's like full blown Watchmen at this point for all I know.
But the events of the movie happened before the events of the show happened. I got you.
Yes, but I do keep hearing that every episode drops Easter eggs for the hardcore graphic novel fans.
Yes.
And there are many. Well, I'm not going to be watching for those, so I need something more compelling than Easter eggs, and apparently it's there.
Yeah.
Same with his Dark Materials on HBO, BBC,
God
with
damn,
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
I can't fucking...
I want to watch
also-
it.
Can't handle all this shit.
But getting back to our Tang here, the thing about our Tang is that we are watching a 2-hour movie over a course of about 8 hours.
That's true. Yeah, that's a different thing than any other thing.
Yes. So, like a lot of people who are like, man, I'm listening to all these podcasts. Like a friend Mike listens to tons of podcasts, and I'm like, I would probably listen to more, but everything that I do job wise is audio visual.
Yeah,
and I can't do the same at the same time. So.
Yeah.
I mean, if I wanted to, I guess I could just put a movie on above the movie that I'm sending.
God, that would fuck with me.
And, didn't you do something like this at one point?
Do what?
Watch a movie while another movie was going on?
Yes.
Yeah. How'd that work?
Not very well.
Well, I mean, even when we're watching movies for the podcast, like when we're like, hey, I want to watch an extra Tom Hanks movie or something like that. Like it seems like, that's something that we have to do, for an assignment, for a reason, rather than just being like, I want to get into this Watchmen thing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I can't find time to do that just kind of like thing if I want to sleep at night.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a list of shows. It goes back. I still haven't watched fucking Stranger Things. It's on the list. I know I'm going to love it, and it's just waiting. It's waiting for me to have a sudden free 3 weeks of time, which will probably happen when I'm 70.
That's also the good thing, too, though. Right now, things are just the world, the cloud is your eternal DVR at this point. So you don't have to watch things. We're in of an era where we used to have to record that shit. Or we had to be there to watch it. For some of us, probably for a little bit, you had to be there to watch it. Like Matt Dillon in Beautiful Girls, Rich Man, Poor Man.
Well, yeah. Now you can DVR Top Chef. By the way,
Top Chef isn't running right now.
No, I'm saying you used to have to watch Top Chef live, right?
Yes.
And now
I can DVR
the magic of
which is good.
Stepped into the 20th century.
But there's nothing like my wife. My wife is going from. My wife hasn't in her library traditionally. Like a living room where she puts all her books. She has never wanted cable because she thought it would be too distracting. So we just had a little basic box where she could get 60 channels of basic stuff, but no like HBO and none of. And the other day, now we've got a cable box in there, and I was flipping channels trying to find something while we were sitting there together, and What About Bob came on.
Ooh, nice.
So we started watching, and then I went to go do some writing, and I came back in 30 minutes later, and she goes, I don't think this channel has commercials. And I was like, yes, welcome to having the movie channels.
Yeah.
There's also cussing in this version.
Yeah.
You're going to love it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one that feels this way.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything at this point is like, if you've got time and it's like, oh, okay, I heard that this was good. The great thing is if you've missed several seasons, you can watch the whole series if you want to, and you don't have to do what all those other chuds did when they watched it.
You call them chuds.
So do we have any recommends and warns?
Totes amazeballs.
It won the Academy Award.
Oh, for what?
For best movie ever made.
I got one of each.
Do it.
Let's start out with this. The most pressing discussion topic for me is the 1997 Robert Duvall movie, The Apostle.
Oh yeah.
Now, have you ever seen it?
Yes.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I saw it when it came out.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
As I recalled this movie, when I saw it in 97, I built it, actually, at my movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
It was a preacher who screwed up and then goes on a journey to reconnect with God. That was sort of my recollection of this. No, he's a fucking asshole the whole movie.
I hated this movie.
His wife cheats on him, Farrah Fawcett. Cheats on him. He's the pastor of basically a megachurch, and through the disruption here, she's also plotted to get him ousted from being a preacher. He goes drinking, shows up at his son's Little League game. Never mind the fact that Duvall's 72 and he has an 8-year-old playing Little League.
Mm-hmm.
But he shows up drunk. Want to see my beauties. Got to see my beauties. Gets in a fight with the dude that she had the affair with. And clocks him with a baseball bat.
Mm-hmm.
He later dies.
Mm-hmm.
But Duvall, he knows he's in big trouble, so he just goes off on the run. And you're like, okay, that's kind of messed up. He's still talking, but thank you, Jesus. Praise you, Jesus. Guide my way, Jesus. The whole movie, he's acting as though Jesus is right next to him, just turning a blind eye to all the shit he does. Pushes his car in a river to hide the evidence. And just reinvents himself as like a bayou radio preacher, right?
Uh-huh.
And eventually the radio audience grows big enough. He finds a little church, calls himself the Apostle EF, right? And then some drunk guy comes to the church. He beats the shit out of him in front of the church, because that's what preachers who are walking with Jesus do.
Mm-hmm.
Then he walks home a single lady who's in his church. Keep in mind, he's not even divorced yet. Walks home this single lady and basically begs her to fuck him.
Oh, shit.
At her front door, he's like, I'm a man, you're a woman, things are natural. Kisses her, and she's like, oh, maybe tomorrow. And he's like, let me come in and I'll tell you what EF stands for in my name. And she's like, oh, another time. He's a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
The whole movie. And then the cops finally catch up to him because his wife hears an AM radio broadcast from 2 states over, like crossing over with her radio signal. And they arrest him. I was really, really annoyed with this movie because the only reason I rewatched it was I thought it had more to say. My memory of it was that it had more to say about redemption or falling from grace. When in reality, I think he's an asshole when the movie starts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure he's walking with God at all. And it became this portrait of a hypocrite. I thought about Kanye West more than anybody when I was watching this movie. About a guy who says all the right phrases, but in his heart, I'm not sure it's matching up with what he's saying there. Also, if you remember this movie, you probably remember a pale, skinny white kid who comes to the church and is very enamored with the apostle and cries when he gets arrested. Walton Goggins.
Really?
Which I did not expect.
Really?
Yep. I'm just watching this movie and it's teenage Walton Goggins.
Wow.
Crazy. Everybody else in the church is black, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Although, what is Goggins playing a teenager? Because I don't think he is a teenager at that point.
No, I think he's playing a man in his early 20s, and I'm exaggerating when I call him teenage Goggins. But I didn't remember him because I didn't know who he was when I saw this movie, and I don't think he was a household name.
Duvall directed it, right?
I think he did, yeah. And it even got some awards buzz. He may have been nominated.
Dude, I don't remember the specifics like that until now. but I remember feeling the same way. Like, why am I rooting for this motherfucker?
Yeah, there is no reason to.
Yes.
And maybe ultimately that's the point. I don't know.
That kind of character is so like Robert Duvall, like he seems like in real life.
Yeah.
That like I don't tend to find him appealing as a person, just in interviews. So I don't really want to see that on screen either. Like you see that in like the Will Ferrell kicking and screaming. It was in that Four Christmases thing where he's just playing an asshole. Yeah. And it's like, and then you see him in interviews, he's acting like an asshole. It's like, all right, dude, just be an asshole.
Duvall was nominated for an Oscar for acting. In this.
And you know what? His acting is fine. That's not the problem I had. The problem I had was that the character was not redeemable in the beginning.
Right.
So Fall from Grace doesn't work, and the character's not redeemable at the end.
By the end of it, isn't he like rebaptizing himself or some goes in the water and
he does a baptism with everybody, but he actually rebaptizes himself earlier on in the movie and acts like, okay, now I did bash that guy in the head with a baseball bat and I'm running from the law, but I rebaptized, so I'm good to go.
The preacher says all my sins are forgiven.
Mm-hmm. It was really fucking creepy hearing him say things that I've heard well-meaning preachers say with good intent, but to know it's coming from the lips of this guy who's a murderer and a sexual creepy guy. And,
sexual creepy
and
guy.
You just beat up guys that come to your church drunk? That's what you do?
Is there a way of looking at this movie and saying that was his point the whole time?
I'm sure if Dicer were here, he would tell me that.
Okay.
I'm not sorry. I'm not trying to throw Dicer under the bus, but
I am.
He tends to find merit in movies where I do not. But maybe that was his point, was that maybe he was making some kind of searing condemnation of phony preachers.
I mean, I do think when you're making that point, it should be clearer in the movie that's the point that you're making. But it seems like that's one of those things that, you know, if you asked them, like, oh yeah, I mean, if you know preachers that I know, that they're all like this, or they all share some sort of one of these traits, or you know, something like that. But I don't remember liking it too much because it wasn't, I don't know, exciting, or it was boring.
It's slow as fuck.
Yeah.
And I get that. I think the reason I went to see it back in the day was that I was new into movies and it was an awards contender and I was trying to see all of those types of films, but maybe I just gave it more credit back then than it deserved.
Yes.
Duvall had sort of a godlike status in my mind.
He did, yeah.
But man, it pissed me off watching it this time.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a movie that came out earlier this year that I have in the collection, and I was like, this is a movie. No matter what I end up, if I want to watch it, it's going to be either a huge recommend or it's going to be a huge warn. It can't be in between. It may be a warn too, but it's not going to be one of those where I watch it and it's one of those ambivalent movies where you're just like, yeah, that was just a movie. But Cold Pursuit.
Liam Neeson's in the Rossums, right?
Liam Neeson, Emmy Rossum, and I'm trying to think if there's any other big.
Herc from The Wire is in it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He's like the bodyguard of the bad guy.
That's right.
Who tries to get fantasy football.
Dominic Lombardozzi is his name.
He tries to get fantasy football advice from the kid.
Yeah,
and the kid's like, "You have 5 Cleveland Browns on your team," and he's like, "I got to support the home team," and the kid's like, "I can't help you."
Yeah, yeah.
I guess Laura Dern is.
Yeah, Laura Dern's in it for like
brief
10 minutes, like not even that.
What's she get?
No. I like how you did the Don Cheadle kill Thanos thing.
This or whatever.
But no, she's married to Liam Neeson, and at the very beginning of this movie, he's getting an award for being the citizen of the year of this place called Kehoe, and so like we know that they have this grown son who's going off to who's doing a job at the airport. And while he is getting this award, his son and a buddy he works with at the airport, they get kidnapped and taken into a van. One of the guys gets out while they're driving the van down the road, but Liam Neeson's kid does not get out of it. And this movie, every time someone dies, they put a title card up and with a little cross on it, and then the character's name. So the first one that dies is this kid, Kyle Coxman. I think so the Coxman thing gets a lot of mileage in this. They don't tell like lots of jokes or anything, but they're always like making a point to say the name and saying, "Ha, laugh forever" when I heard that. So his son is dead. They go to identify the body, he and Laura Dern, and that looks like it's been staged to where he had a drug overdose, and Liam Neeson's like, "Oh, my son was not a druggie," and they're like, "Well, that's what all."
This is all in the trailer, which is hilarious.
Yeah, it's like the parent, the investigators are like, "Well, that's what all the parents say," and he says that he was not a druggie. He keeps saying druggie over and over again, and so he is. I didn't really understand this. I thought this was a bad choice. Apparently his son dying puts him on a path where he wants to kill himself. And
it's not a Taken situation where
no.
Okay.
And just it's eerily like The Gray where he does this exact same thing.
Yep.
He stands this rifle up and he's sitting down and he's about to do it. But the guy who got away is in the garage when this happens. And he tells him, "Yeah, this is what happened. This is who you need to go after and everything." This guy named Speedo. Everybody's got a nickname.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying.
Yeah. Everybody's got a nickname.
Viking
is the main drug dealer guy. This guy Speedo is the guy who was instrumental in the kidnapping. So Neeson, of course, as Neeson does, goes and finds this guy at a bar, beats the fuck out of him. Asks him if there's anybody else he needs to know about. Of course, everybody before they get killed gives them one other name.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
and so like he's like he said Speedo says something before he dies, and then we have the title card. This guy died, and so
that
it's
seems
like
very distracting.
they're all like divided. It's almost like they're divided into chapters.
It's a very stylized film.
Really?
For sure.
I would not have guessed that.
No, and it's like there's a whole like Native American like mafia angle.
So this is how it goes. It's very pulpy. It's a pulpy kind of action B movie.
Yeah.
So when he kills 3 different drug dealer guys, looking for the main guy, that he wants the main guy. And, he ends up talking to his brother, William Forsythe, about where he can find this other guy. And then it starts getting into this whole thing. Well, you're not going to be able to find that guy, but you can hire somebody to do that for you. And then they get some other guy like mixed up in all of this. But when he kills those 3 guys, the guy Viking, who's the head of this drug, business or whatever, believes that it has to be these Native Americans that his father dealt with when he was younger. They've sort of, I guess, many years ago decided, this is your territory, this is mine. And he thinks it's the Native Americans. He goes after and he kills the main guy's son and like hangs him over a mileage sign.
Yeah, there's a street sign on the highway. He's like hanging there like a what the like a straw man.
Yeah.
Scarecrow. Like a scarecrow.
Yeah.
But like, look, I killed your boy and I'm gonna hang him on the thing.
Yeah. And
this movie is so fucking watchable.
I mean,
really? I think it's bad, but I loved watching it.
There's just so many insane like turns they keep taking with everything. It's the type of movie where it's like 2 guys can't be just hitmen; they have to be gay lover hitmen. They always sprinkle these details like this is all way more interesting than you think it is type of thing to every situation.
Yeah. How does Emmy Rossum fit into this?
She and this old dude who I believe is also from The Wire.
Oh, he is.
I can't remember what his character name was.
Shit.
But he was one of those many like suit guys that would come in into The Wire and be like, "You guys got to clean up Baltimore." But she's with that guy, and of course they're in a small town where not much happens. In fact, at the very beginning, when we first see her, she wants to bust some guys who are smoking weed outside, and the older guy is like, we're enforcing community guidelines here. Do you really think that people care about people smoking weed? It's legal here. You don't have to go through with all this. But she's like, she really wants to go after people. When she finds out that 3 people on this one side of a drug overlord business are dead, and this other guy was killed in retaliation, she starts asking questions about, what's the deal with them and everything. And then she's got a boyfriend in Denver who gives her information as long as she can keep like leading him on. Basically.
Yeah, promising him sex that she doesn't intend to give him.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
It's the head of the homicide division is who that guy was. His name is John Dornan. Donan.
Yeah.
Doman. He's the guy that gets He's the guy that gets Dominic West stuck on the boat duty by asking him, where don't you want to go?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah, she's looking into that. So she's getting the connection. That's the thing though. The all these drug overlords, they have no idea about Liam Neeson at all. It takes a little bit of connections to come to light before the drug dealers are even realize he's a part of it. So yeah, it's a lot of people dying for reasons that they don't, that really actually aren't, they don't know why they're getting killed a lot of time. And then like just upping the ante. It's not as funny as something like Shoot 'em Up, but it reminds me of something like Shoot 'em Up.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Now that makes me want to watch it. I love Shoot 'em Up.
It's trying to have fun more than it necessarily succeeds.
Oh, okay.
But there's some funny violence.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, they keep upping the ante on everything. And so in the end, Cold Pursuit, it's a movie that I can't fully on recommend. I can't fully on warn, so it's a wreck of warn.
All right.
But it's you're gonna have fun watching it.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sold.
I had a blast, but I'm pretty sure it's not a good movie.
So he is a plower.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's Mr.
Mr.
Plow.
Plow.
Mr. Plow.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great amount of detail spoken between him and the bad guy's son about the plows.
Yeah, there's a point where Liam Neeson kidnaps the drug lord's son. That's how far we get into.
But he's nice. He's nice to him because he's a good kidnapper.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But there's a whole point where he wants to he read a story and he reads him an instruction book for a snowplow like a spec thing for a plow.
Oh, is he a small child?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then Liam Neeson's like, I had one of these.
Yeah.
Talking about the snowplow and the thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
All right, I'm on board now.
That's an excellent one. Very good Warren.
Oh, I've got a very weird record. Okay, Bonfire of the Vanities.
Yeah.
Came out in 1990, based on a book from Tom Wolfe.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably Tom Wolfe's most famous book. And it's all about the super, super, super upper class and what they do to keep their empire going,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well-received book. Everybody loved it. So they make it into a movie. Brian fucking De Palma makes this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys seen it?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Okay. I had never seen this movie. But the only thing that I've heard about this movie is that it's fucking terrible. It's a garbage fire. Like, it's just the worst thing ever. And then I look at the cast list. It's Tom Hanks, top billed, Bruce Willis, Kim Cattrall, and Melanie Griffith, and all these things. It's just a ridiculous cast. Morgan Freeman is in this.
Tom Cruise.
Yes.
Then there's, so it's got a great cast. F. Murray Abraham is in this. F. Murray Abraham plays a district attorney. And so I go into this with the lowest of expectations to watch it. It's a fun watch. It's not the best movie in the world, but it's fun as hell.
This is one of those movies that you file under the Ishtar file, right? Where Ishtar is not nearly as bad as it's been portrayed. It's mainly because of the star power and the money that went behind it and how big of a movie it was supposed to be. And then when it comes out, nobody goes to see it. And nobody likes it really, or they expect a lot and they don't get what they want. Like Ishtar is like that. It's not a good movie, but it's not worst movie of all time,
No.
which is what a lot of times people were saying. And Bonfire of the Vanities is one of these movies that had ultra budget, one of the biggest directors, Hanks, Willis. I mean, they should have like destroyed on this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they
Here it is. It's a fucking product of its time. So 1990, the really kind of the start of the fall of the yuppie Wall Street class and all that stuff. At that point, nobody really wants to watch something like that because ultimately, and I think it's a stylistic choice from Brian De Palma, and I appreciated it. Hanks's character is this upper crust, like super Wall Street guy, playing against type very much at the beginning of this. But because he's Tom Hanks, he is ultimately redeemed in this movie for a pretty awful act. And I could see people, first of all, like fans of the books, thinking that this is hedging their bet. The people that hadn't read the book thinking like, why did I watch this story? Like what happened to this guy? What was the arc? That kind of thing. And just kind of like people being done with that sort of glorification of the upper class. I don't care. I want to watch this. I want to see good actors act good. And, there's a lot of like this behind the scenes stuff that went on. F. Murray Abraham hated this movie so much. And he wanted like top billing, so he's uncredited. He took his credit off of this. There were stories about how Bruce Willis was just an absolute nightmare to work with. Yeah, exactly. He's terrific in this movie, though. He's a character that kind of is the narrator that kind of floats off on the side, so it's fine. That's perfectly fine. This movie opens with a one shot. You may have seen this like on YouTube or something like that. About a 6-minute one shot of Bruce Willis arriving to this event. He's a writer, and he's arriving to this event, and he's the keynote speaker, and he's super wasted. He's drunk. He's grabbing women. He's grabbing food. He's grabbing drinks and stuff like that. It is glorious. It is a beautiful shot to open up, and it really, really hammers home how artistically interesting this movie is going to be. And it really is. It's not perfect. Morgan Freeman has this character that goes into like a sermon at the end, which is weird and like, out of nowhere, but it's a fun watch.
I'll tell you what, De Palma has got some misses on his resume for me, but all his movies look rad as hell.
Yeah.
That man knew how to shoot.
I was watching Scarface again the other night.
Yeah.
And that's a movie that looks great.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like it, like it's just beautifully shot. The colors are great. Like all of the set pieces are great, and this is a movie that I'm glad I went back to. It's Tom Hanks in this period, right around like Nothing in Common. We'll talk about it in a second, but like Nothing in Common and this, and the Volunteers and stuff like that started to show like a little bit more range, and then he went kind of back to broad comedy. But I like this Hanks. I feel good about this Hanks.
Yeah. All right, everybody, it is time to talk about Mubi once again. And there are some very interesting titles on there right now. What did you watch on there, Barrett?
Man, I'm a sucker for French stuff. And there's this series that I didn't know existed. You remember the movie The Artist? The silent movie with Jean Dujardin?
Yeah.
So he apparently does other things where he can actually talk.
He does other things!
And there's this spy spoof in France in the late, like 2009. Well, actually, it started in 2006, and then there was a sequel in 2009 of like a James Bond spoof, Austin Powers type of thing, except it's Jean Dujardin as a Bond character, and it's in French. Mm-hmm. And Austin, I love Austin Powers. I think there's a lot of fun to be had with Austin Powers. But it's obvious that, Mike Myers can't really play it middle ground. It's all the way or nothing at all. And this one is more subversively funny. Mm-hmm. Like it'll say there'll be a character that's revealed later on, and he's like the spy, like a James Bond spy, and he's like, "Oh no, I thought you were dead," and he was like, "No, I am not," and he was like, "But I thought you were dead," and he's like, "As you can see, I am here," and he's like, "But you were dead," and it's played with this wonderful like deadpan humor from this guy. I mean, it is really, really funny, less overtly comedic as an Austin Powers thing, but still super funny. There's one point where they're in like a chicken farm, and they start, instead of like shooting at each other, they're throwing chickens at each other. But the series is called OSS 117. That's his like 007 type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one is called Nest of Spies, and the second one is Lost in Rio, which looks like it's even upping the camp on it and stuff like that. This is delightful. You would totally love this.
Yeah,
I think you would love it too.
All right, well, I'll have to give that give that a look at some point. Then, I watched a movie from Bhutan.
Ooh,
called-
Bhutan.
Yes, Bhutan.
Just north of India.
Northeast India in the Himalayas.
Mhm.
It's called Honey Giver Among the Dogs, and I'm not going to even try the original title.
In Bhutanese.
Yeah, but it's a mystery. It's a really well done mystery about it's about this village where the woman who runs an abbey. An abbess?
Abbess, yes, I think so, yeah.
There is reason to believe that she has been murdered because there are witnesses that say that she's been pushed off of a cliff. So these policemen come out to interrogate basically the entire village, and everybody has the same answer. It's probably this one woman who came in a couple of years ago. She's a demoness, and but she's very beautiful and everything.
Of course.
Yes. And so everybody's got the same answer. There is this one mom and her daughter live together close to where this woman, they call her Choden or something like that throughout the movie. She is she's sort of hiding out close to where this house is, and the little girl knows this woman that they're talking about, and it doesn't seem like she's a demoness at all. She's very nice, in fact. It doesn't seem like that at all. And finally, the main policeman guy comes up and asks them, do you know anything about this? And the little girl says, I think I know where she is. And so you're like, well, why is she giving her the information? I thought she was protecting this woman or whatever. He says she's going to be on a bus to this town. You want to be on that bus when it goes. Gets on the bus, and she is on this bus. And then she approaches him out of nowhere and says, I'm in a lot of trouble. Would you mind walking with me to this town instead of being on the bus? So there's a big long thing where they're walking, and he agrees to do this. And he goes, finally he's like, well, what is the trouble? And of course he knows what the trouble is, but he's like, what is the trouble? She won't answer. She keeps giving him these parables and stories about, religious figures through time and everything. And then halfway through the movie, they get to their destination, and he continues to look for the answers and everything. And that's where I'll stop. But it is, it's not one of these movies. It sounds like it's going to be some mystical, like dreamlike. It is a little bit dreamlike. It sounds like it's going to be one of these things that take you down a road where you're like, oh my God, I don't even know what the hell happened in this movie or whatever. It's pretty straightforward. At that point, there is some mystical in it, but, it's pretty straightforward at that point. Very well done mystery. And I would compare it to something like Chinatown. It's got some of the same elements of Chinatown.
Incest.
Oh yeah. It's all about that.
There you go.
As we all remember, Chinatown was just nothing about incest. In fact, they were calling it that at one point. You find it on Incestopedia.
It's something I'm gonna know.
Oh man,
there's a lot of good stuff on Mubi right now.
There is a lot of good stuff,
and we would like to share it with you.
Yes,
and in a way that doesn't cost you any ducats, at least in the start.
That's right. You will, fair warning, you'll become addicted after this 30 days, because if you go to Mubi.com, MUBI.com/Cinemasins, it's 30 days free. Free. And then you'll have this exposure to these wonderful cinematic nuggets. The one movie is replaced every day by a new movie, so you've got a possibility of seeing up to 60 movies in this 30-day span. You're gonna love it, man. There's like a chunk of movies going into the back catalog of Isabelle Huppert, whatever. And I can't wait to dive into that. One of them is directed by Michael Haneke.
Yeah.
Which is just something I need to wrap my mind around.
Yep.
And,
You got to be prepared. That's a situation that you got to get to.
Yeah. But it's something that I wouldn't be exposed to probably outside of movies. So go to mubi.com/cinemasins and you get 30 days free, and you're going to love it, and you're going to thank us, and let us know when you do it, and we'll say that's awesome.
I wonder if we shouldn't go right into Hanks and just for time purposes, as
I'm good with
opposed to doing another round.
If you guys want to,
Yeah, I think we should probably, because Tom Hanks has a huge talent. No, he's got a number of movies that we could talk about for a long time, probably. The first one on this list is He Knows You're Alone. I've never seen this.
this is a horror movie that was the first thing that Hanks ever did on as a movie.
Okay. Did you ever see it?
No.
Oh, okay. I did see this one, Mazes and Monsters.
You know,
This is the reefer madness of Dungeons and Dragons.
they're making right. They're making this board game to be insidious, right?
Yes.
Oh wow.
This is an unironic reefer madness is Dungeons and Dragons. Like, that's how bad. That's how they're like, people can get into these Dungeons and Dragons games and they can actually think they're the character and that they're fighting dragons. That's what happens to people. They get addicted to this stuff. I haven't seen it in forever, so maybe it's not nearly as ridiculous as I remember it, but I think it's as ridiculous as I remember.
It sounds like it. Sounds like it is.
Yeah.
I actually, after I wrote this up, I thought I had never seen it, but I remember seeing this. I think it was a TV movie.
It was, yeah.
But I remember seeing it like years later.
It has young Margaret Collin in it, too.
Yeah.
Then we have Splash, movie I saw 100 million times back in the day. Anything from 1984 that managed to find its way on HBO in like 1985, I've seen this 100 million times. Daryl Hannah plays the mermaid that comes out of the water, and that
Merman.
yeah, merman.
It's a merman.
And Hanks sort of shelters in his apartment until he figures out I think he just thinks she's lost at first. And
Okay,
doesn't know she's a mermaid.
Right, because she has legs. When
Even
she comes
though
on,
they
right?
had some childhood thing where he was under the water and
Yeah,
kissed a
yeah.
mermaid and all that. He doesn't know about her mermaidness until like later on, I think.
Until she gets in a bath, or
She
like
gets in a tub, but I don't know
Yeah.
if it's that scene that tips it off.
the water activates her fishy tail.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Whips smack with her fishy tail.
I have never seen this movie.
Oh my God.
Really?
I think you would like this.
I probably would, but it was definitely off limits when I was growing up.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a scene, this is a very PG-13 nudity in this.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl Hannah walks onto Ellis Island, like completely naked.
Is that where it is?
I think it's Ellis Island, or it's just where Statue of Liberty is.
Mhm.
And it's a butt shot as she walks to, like, everybody's looking at the Statue of Liberty and everything, and it's like this is naked woman who doesn't care at all.
Oh, she's a mermaid, and god damn, Daryl Hannah, like in this movie in particular, she's beautiful anyway.
Mhm.
But like, this is where I blossomed
Yeah,
into the man that
that's
I became.
right. That's right. She's a fine filly.
My first boy-girl thing was for you.
But well, maybe he does. I don't know. I can't. That's the one thing I saw this a million times back in 1985,
Yeah.
but I haven't seen it really much since. He does find out fairly soon because he's going around teaching her things,
Right,
and everything.
right.
And maybe though he thinks that she's foreign.
Yes, I think that's the case.
what it is. And so, like, everything that she goes up to a walk sign and she's like, pretty.
Yeah.
And he, like all these things, she gets really fascinated by TVs
Mhm.
and everything. Eugene Levy plays the villain.
Yeah, that's fun. There's Johnny Candy's in this.
Yeah,
too.
John Candy, I think, is his best friend in this. Splash is good. I haven't seen it forever. It's Ron Howard.
Little Ronnie Howard.
Yeah,
Little Ronnie
Howard. Then we have Bachelor Party, which I believe came out the same year.
Yep.
I've never seen Bachelor Party.
Really? I fucking love this movie. Now, this is a little bit off the topic, but there was a thing going around on Twitter where it was Shia LaBeouf and Kristen Stewart talking on the new Inside the Actor Studio.
Mm-hmm.
And Kristen Stewart was talking about hands and how she really loved hands and they're very spiritual. And Shia LaBeouf's like, oh yeah, totally. No, and when you were holding that gun in that movie and stuff like that. And the caption was like, this is if 2 lines of cocaine could have a conversation. And this movie, Bachelor Party, is like a movie version of just a line of cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
It's hilarious, though. It is absolutely. It's the stereotypical 80s bachelor party thing. You know, booze, drugs, donkeys. Sound like Stefan right now. Strippers, porn, shit like that. And Hanks is just absolutely unleashed, and it's fucking great. I think it's Tawny Katane is his fiance in this, and it makes no apologies for being just absolutely lewd on both sides, the males and the females. And it's just, this is like you say, a warm blanket. This is a warm blanket for me. It's very hard R. It's this you will have a good time watching.
A movie that I remember seeing the title of many times, but I don't think I ever saw it, was The Man with One Red Shoe.
Ooh. Yeah.
And this is isn't it like the CIA is after him or something like that? I never saw it, I don't think.
This is Dabney Coleman, I think, is the bad guy. And is it Carrie Fisher? Yeah, Carrie Fisher's in this. He's a concert violinist, and he gets mistaken for a spy. And they get into all kinds of like tomfoolery, and it's very good. It's like a little more dramatic than he's done up until this point. But it's got some slapstick in it. Mm-hmm. I remember it being good.
All right.
We are going to get into something where we are going to get into a stretch here where I have not missed a Tom Hanks movie.
Yeah,
but
there's little stretches.
But like this little spot right here, I missed most of this stuff. I never saw Volunteers either.
Oh, I saw it once, but I remember feeling like this was actually within the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking the comedy didn't hold up very well.
No, it's not very good. I always thought of this as like Hanks's version of Stripes. And I always thought it was shittier because he's with the Peace Corps. He's not like signing up for the military or whatever. Like he's a erudite dude with a lot of money from his family, and he enlists in the Peace Corps and learns lessons about life and love. It's not very good though.
Then now we're gonna get into a big stretch of stuff that I've seen. The Money Pit. This movie is ridiculous. I mean, it's great. Yeah. It's fun. It's a Tom Hanks showpiece. Mm-hmm. But like he and Shelley Long buy this house that, they're like, oh, it's a little fixer upper. It won't. They buy it obviously dirt cheap. Mm-hmm. But it's the most fixing uppiness house that can stand upright. When you first walk into it, that there is like it's amazing that it doesn't fall apart as soon as they walk in, as many things that happens in this movie.
Well, that's the great joke, is that it's in good shape when they go out there, and it's this widow, this wealthy widow who's wants to move to the tropics or whatever, and she's like, my husband just died, I just want to get out. And they go through, and like she's driving him around with the car, like an old Rolls Royce and everything. And it's going perfectly well. He walks up the stairs and he's like, I feel a little creak in the stairs. And she's like, oh, I'll get that fixed, that kind of thing. And like everything looks fine. And then as soon as she leaves and they move in, everything fucking falls apart. It's fucking great. Yeah.
It has one of my all-time favorite moments in it. And that is, so many things have already gone wrong. And then the bathtub falls through the fucking floor. And all we see is we see a shot from down below of Hanks way above where the tub used to be, and Shelley Long looking down into this hole, and Hanks just kind of going, ha, 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 and just keeps going and going.
The best part, he did a perfect impression. The best part is where he lets that out. He's like, nobody can do it. This guy is just absolutely, I mean, his reactions to all of this shit. There's one part where the chimney, like he lights the chimney and the chimney just falls through and he starts like just following it down. He's like, hey, look at this.
Yeah.
Fucking great.
Yeah. And then there's like a whole thing too towards the end where like somebody says they're going to fix it for them or something. Yeah. Does he have to do it? He has to do something, right?
Well, the crew that they get is one of those classic contractors that show up when they want to show up.
Yeah.
And they show up and they fuck up the house even more.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy says, well, we'll be done in 2 weeks. And he's like, what? 2 weeks? And then it takes them, a year or something like that. Meanwhile, Shelley Long is also a concert violinist, and she's dating Alexander Diehard.
Oh, yeah. Dude who played Carl.
Yeah. Good enough?
That's probably right.
But he's hilarious in this. Yeah, good enough. Wow, how about that?
Yeah, he's a classic ballet dancer or something.
No,
like
he's
that.
the conductor.
No. He in real life he was like a classic
really?
ballet dancer. Or
Wow. Well, he's hilarious in this. Shelley Long is very, very funny in this.
Yeah. Height of her Cheers fame.
Yes, I love this movie. I've seen this movie probably as many times as you saw Splash, but like more consistently over my life. It's one of those that I could probably like run through the dialogue.
Yeah. Nothing in Common. This movie's not very good.
You didn't like it?
No.
Did you ever see
what
this?
is it?
Nothing in Common.
This is Tom Hanks and Jackie Gleason.
Never saw it. Oh, Gleason's his dad.
Yeah,
right?
Gleason's his dad. Although there's hardly anything between Hanks and Gleason throughout the whole movie until like towards the end. There's a couple of scenes, but this movie's all over the place. It starts off. So he's an advertising exec, and like he's trying to get this airline. That's I can't remember that dude's name, but it's him and his daughter Celia Ward who run this Colonial Airlines thing. And he's trying to get this this contract, and he's hanging out with dude throughout a week doing activities and stuff. He ends up bedding down Celia Ward. Celia Ward actually goes and straight up tells her dad that's what they did.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, my daughter tells me everything. Don't worry about it. Blah, blah, blah. and so like that's his main thing. But meanwhile, his dad is like used to be this big time salesman. He's at the very end of his sales career, and he's waiting for it's clothing, I think. And he's obviously not got it anymore, but he's also like suffering from diabetes and everything. He just can't sell anything anymore. He gets fired, all that, and he's being divorced. He and his wife, Eva Marie Saint,
that's right,
are getting divorced, or they're separated. And so like Hank spends a lot of time between Gleason and Marie Saint and Celia Ward and a former girlfriend played by Bess Armstrong.
Oh yeah,
who is awesome.
Yeah.
And she's My So-Called Life mom. So there's all these little vignettes throughout where there's nothing really coherent about it until the point where Jackie Gleason is officially sick and he has to go and tend to him and everything, and the conflict that has on his job.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't like this.
No, I enjoyed it. I think because, and again, we're starting to see a little bit more of Hanks's range, and this is where he's like full on leading man, like really taking ownership of a movie. Even though it starts off where he's like almost like a big type of character, where he's like a little happy-go-lucky type of character, but then he really, the character finds himself in a position to where he needs to take care of his parents when they've always taken care of him. And I like that arc. Now, it's been a long time since I've seen it all the way through.
Feel like it should have been a little bit more that than the Celia Ward thing. I love Celia Ward.
Yeah.
You can give me Celia Ward all you want, but like if your ultimate story is, oh, his dad gets sick and he needs to make sure that he gives equal time to his dad and his mom and is able to juggle all this stuff. There's a scene out of nowhere where he's trying to juggle phone calls from everybody because the airline's calling him and his firm is calling him and his dad is calling him and his mom is calling him. And it looks like this big thing that's weighing on him, but it's just a montage and it doesn't really impact much. Gary Marshall directed this movie. But yeah, I didn't like it too much, but yeah, there's some things in it. Sure.
He's certainly good in this.
There's a scene at the very beginning where he comes in and he's obviously the clown of the entire thing, hey, you're looking good, man. And there's like a point where there's this one woman that he's just constantly like joking on and everything. She never says a word the entire movie, but he comes in, he gives her a gift because he's just come from like the Bahamas or something. And he goes, I'm giving you that because you make me laugh. You make me laugh. And she just sits there just looking at him and everything. And then she's going, it's that one of those things where you're going around the office. I'm just cutting up. I'm cutting up and everything. And then you're like, man, that's funny. But I'm wondering, would I like that guy in real life? I've seen parts of Every Time We Say Goodbye. I'm pretty sure he plays like a soldier that comes back.
Yeah, I've never seen it, but yeah, he plays like a Gentile soldier that gets involved with a Jewish lady in Jerusalem.
Yeah, I remember a line with him. There's a line that I remember from this movie because he used to play it a lot, where he says something. I think the main woman in there asks him, what do you think about God and religion? And he goes, I think God would have a lot to answer for if we had a chance to question him and everything like that.
Also inspired that great pop hit, Every Time You Go Away.
Every time you go.
You take a piece of me.
Yeah.
With you. Every time you go. Who was it? Like Joe Cocker? Who the fuck is that?
I don't know who it was.
Who did the Uncle Leo used to cover this all the time? The
Uncle
band at the Flying Saucer.
I know who you meant.
Missing You. Who did Missing You?
Missing You?
Oh, yeah. Since you've been gone away,
I ain't missing you at all. That one?
So, okay. This is a diversion. Okay, so Missing You is John Waite. Every Time You Go Away is Paul Young.
All right. That looks like Johnny Depp there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Then there's Dragnet. I know I've seen Dragnet. It's Hanks and Aykroyd. I've seen it. I don't remember a thing about it. And this was the question that they asked when we were doing that movie fights thing, that we were going the back and forth, and they were like, something like between Dragnet and Turner and Hooch or something. And I was like, fuck, you're asking me about movies I haven't seen in 30 fucking years? Okay, and tried to make a coherent argument about one or the other. And I just couldn't. But anyway, Dragnet.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it probably 5 times.
Do you like it?
As long as you follow that up with another question slightly phrased differently, yes.
Do you think it's good?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't even think they work very well as a comedy team.
No.
They took a show that was not comedy and tried to make it... A lot of these movies from older shows have done this. They try and make a comedy out of what used to be a drama. Mm-hmm. And in a weird way, I think you could write out the synopsis for this film, and it might sound like a sequel to The Nice Guys in terms of like the time period and because they're investigating a fucking satanic cult that's trying to sacrifice a virgin, and they're all wearing goat masks and costumes. But no, it's not good at all. But it's very watchable. I think I've quoted it on the podcast before, but my favorite line, probably because I was like 12 when this movie came out, was they're interrogating somebody. And Tom Hanks says to the guy they're interrogating, it's just you, me, your balls, and this drawer. And it cuts to outside the interrogation room, and you hear a drawer slam, and they're like, ah!
I never understood this movie because this is Dan Aykroyd in the peak of his, like, you know, Ghostbusters 2, you know, kind of zany comedy self. And he's playing Joe Friday, like the most straight-laced motherfucker in the history of television.
Yeah.
And it didn't work at all. And you're right, they had zero chemistry.
Yeah, and they're both okay. They're just that it didn't feel like it's the kind of thing where if you told me behind the scenes you heard they didn't get along while they were making this movie, I would believe you.
Yeah. The movie that certainly shot Hanks into the stratosphere is Big. He was already an established star, but I believe Big is what really turned him into what the Tom Hanks that we know today. This is a simple story. Kid wishes to be an adult. He has this Zoltar machine. He wish he was big. And he turns big, but he still has the mind of his 11-year-old
Classic
self.
not using enough specific language there in that wish.
Yeah, I know. And what's his name? Josh Baskin?
Mm-hmm. Yes, good call.
Yeah. And so he gets this job at a toy company.
Yeah.
And now all the adults in the room keep coming up with shitty adult ideas for kids' toys, but because he is a kid, he comes up with the great stuff.
Got
And he
hacks.
goes, hey, I don't get it, man.
Man, John Hurt is so funny in this movie, getting flustered at Tom Hanks, because he's the only one that sees it. He's like J.K. Simmons in Terminator Genesis.
Yeah.
Goddamn grown-up kid in a grown-up's body always fucking up my plans.
Yep.
Does he get the job because of the piano thing with Robert Loggia?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah,
No.
he gets invited afterwards, right?
No, because there's a whole scene where he has a resume and he goes for an interview, and his friend tries to come with him to the interview, and he's like,
Yeah.
no, you have to sit here and wait. I think that's after. I mean, I think that's before he goes and plays on the piano.
Oh, okay.
Because that scene is where the owner of the company
He gets promoted.
realizes
Yeah,
his value is that he can see like
And
kids see.
that scene is one of the most famous scenes of all time, probably.
Isn't that FAO Schwartz?
Yeah.
I think it is an FAO Schwartz.
It's amazing when you watch it the first time because it comes out of really nowhere, even if you haven't seen the trailer. But then you don't even expect it when you're watching it in rewatches because he's just kind of wandering, and all of a sudden you hear, and he's just,
Yeah.
it's so great, it's so beautiful.
My favorite moment in the whole movie is the dumbest thing, but it's when he goes to that fancy work cocktail party.
Yeah.
And he picks up one of those mini corn kernels and he eats it with two hands up in his mouth, just like you would a regular sized corn of cob. He's like, and then he's like, like he liked it.
And there's a point where Elizabeth Perkins is like in love with him, and he doesn't know anything about romance and relationships and everything. And she keeps on like giving him suggestive language that I'll stay over tonight and all that. And he goes, so you want to spend the night? And she goes, yes. And he goes, okay, but I get to be on top.
Yeah.
He means the top bunk.
That's right. And his buddy is this like raunchy fucking, kid or whatever, like talking about looking down girls' dresses and stuff like
this whole movie is wish fulfillment. I mean, he's got the giant apartment in fucking in downtown Manhattan. He works at a fucking toy company. He's got a trampoline in his apartment
and a
fucking
Pepsi machine.
a Pepsi machine and a fucking like Galaga machine.
Yeah.
But to me, the only reason that this movie works is because of Tom Hanks. If anybody else in the universe plays this role, I don't think
James
it's
Dean
watchable.
would be good.
I was
James
going to
Dean.
say, there's probably some dead comic that could have done it better.
Weirdly, this is Penny Marshall, so he worked with
Penny
Gary
Marshall.
Marshall and Penny Marshall.
Yeah, and he's gonna work with Penny Marshall at least one other time on this list.
I wonder if he's ever worked with Rob Marshall.
Probably. No, I don't think so.
Is he Chicago?
Yeah, that's a Chicago. Punchline. Now, I've seen Punchline a couple of times in my life. This is him trying to be a stand-up comic. Sally Field is someone who's trying to do it behind her husband's back.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of I believe there's a bunch of established comics who sort of form the supporting cast. Taylor Negron is in this, I believe. Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few others who
Damon Wayans is in there.
Damon Wayans.
Yeah.
That's right. And it's about about them like going to these a lot of these comics are trying to make it big. Sally Field's just trying to do something that she enjoys and that she's trying to get good at and everything.
She is good.
And she is good. There is a great moment in Punchline where she's trying to tell a David Berkowitz joke. And Hanks tells her, "You have to use Son of Sam. You can't do Berkowitz. Nobody knows what you're talking about."
Yeah.
So she goes out and does it with Berkowitz, and nobody laughs. And she's like, she has to go on to the next thing. And so then she does the Son of Sam the next time. I think she does it the next time and gets the laughs and everything. This movie's really good. I think still today, there's very few people who talk about it.
No. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now I want to go back and watch it from the perspective of just what you said, of crafting a joke in a certain way.
Yeah.
Because even though we don't perform for live, like we go through and reword things specifically to get that impact. So yeah, I think this would be a lot of fun to watch again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to watch this again. This is one of the movies off of this list that I'm like, need to give that another run. The Burbs. This movie's great.
Oh, The Burbs.
This just makes me warm and fuzzy. You got Corey Feldman, the pizza dude. You got Bruce
Which he
Dern.
apparently ad-libbed, the whole pizza dude thing.
That's right.
So proud of it, though. So proud. But you have
Wait a minute.
Henry Gibson,
He has a bit about a pizza dude in this movie.
Is
that where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles line comes from?
No, I don't think so. I think it's he's really from the beginning, because Bruce Dern's wife is out there like gardening, and he's looking down, or he's looking at her ass.
Yeah.
And she's like showing it off proudly. But then he's like, "Hey, the pizza dude's coming," or something like that.
But like in the first Turtles movie, I think it's even the one he voiced. In the very beginning, they've ordered a pizza, and the turtle goes, "Pizza dude's got 30 seconds."
That's if that movie came out in the same year or like right after, then yeah, I would probably say he did that because of the Burbs.
It's gotta be. I'm gonna go check that out.
But yeah, and the woman that's married to Bruce Dern is the one who is the voice of Stan Smith's in American Dad. She's
really? Wendy Shaw.
Wendy Shaw is the voice of his wife in that.
Yeah, no, I can see that right. Yeah, that's crazy.
But it's Tom Hanks married to Carrie Fisher. And there's another guy, there's a character actor's name that I always forget.
Art. It's Richard Duckelman.
Yeah. He recently died, unfortunately, but he is amazing.
He's hilarious.
Yeah. But this is they live on this in this neighborhood that I think Leave It to Beaver was shot on the set and everything. It's a famous Universal set, I believe, that they shot this movie on. And some neighbors have moved or moved unexpectedly across the street, and these new neighbors, these scary neighbors, have come in, and they start inventing all these, like, what are these people about? What are they doing? There's always something going on at night where there's like some lights going on in the basement and everything. And like they start inventing this whole like scenario, and then to the point where they go way above and beyond what neighbors should be doing to investigate what's going on with this family. But you have Henry Gibson, you have the kid from Children of the Corn in it.
Yep.
The redheaded dude who, and so yeah, it's them just sort of. Hanks has like lost his job or something.
No, he's on vacation.
Well, he's on vacation for a long time in this movie.
Does that come up later in the movie?
This is one of those things where I believe in the movie they initially had a scene where it showed that he got fired.
Oh, really?
But then they didn't keep it. So then you're like, how does he have all this time? He's just on vacation this whole time?
Yeah, he actually. Well, I mean, there's a line in the first part of the movie where she's pissed off that he's just going to stay around the whole time instead of like taking them somewhere.
Yeah.
And so he's looking forward to having like, I don't know, 4 weeks off or something like that, where he can just hang out and drink beers and smoke cigars.
Yeah. I think they added the vacation thing.
That's
but like
crazy.
He was supposed to have been let go, and he didn't tell her about it, and that was a whole thing that they were going to put in there. By the way, there's a scene in here where he's watching TV and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is on.
Oh, that's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was kind of cool. When I saw
he knew back then.
Yeah. The Burbs is excellent. That's Joe Dante, and it's if you haven't seen it, that's a huge recommend. Turner and Hooch have not seen this since it came out. I know he's a cop or something, and it's a police dog.
Mm-hmm.
And
no. It's not a police dog. He inherits this dog because its owner was killed, and he's investigating.
Okay, so I'm probably thinking of K-9, which came out the same year.
I just didn't watch any of these movies.
Yeah.
I mean, this came out in the mid-'80s, right?
Late 80s. 88.
88. I'm 13 years old,
89?
14 years old. I knew this was dumb. I didn't need to watch it to know it was dumb. But it seems like in every comic's life, they end up making a movie with a fucking animal.
It's fun dumb though. This is a better movie.
Jason
than
Alexander
the
did
one.
Dunstan Checks In. Matt LeBlanc did Ed.
Yep.
Like every comic somewhere on their way up to make their nuts or whatever you call it, they have to make a movie with a fucking animal. And I've never had any interest. Even the Clint Eastwood ones with the gorilla, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is worthwhile. If you were to watch any of those that you just rattled off, including K-9, I would recommend.
Is he
this
a
one.
cop in this though?
He is. Yes.
Okay. There's a whole scene at the beginning where he's telling his dog, "No spitting, no chewing. This is not your room," or something of that nature. And he keeps telling him each room, he's like, "This is not your room.
Yeah.
This is not." But of course, the dog ends up just,
This is not your room.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's of course in my mind, like the most lovable and crazy, but like he's disgusting and slobbering and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I like this movie hits me in the feels because it's interesting that you didn't see most of these movies because it came at a time where you weren't watching movies. Like these were the type of movies that I was allowed to see and that I just adored.
All right.
Then Joe versus the Volcano. I have not seen this in forever.
Mm-hmm.
I remember enjoying it. I was 13, I think, when this came out. This is the first Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan team up.
3 Meg Ryans.
Yeah, 3 Meg Ryans. I think the basic gist is that he goes to Hawaii.
So he's a dude that has always kind of been fastidious and stuff like that, and with his money and his looks and everything. And then he finds out that he has a terminal disease, and apparently
A brain cloud.
Yes. And apparently there's a thing in Hawaii where you can live like a king on this island for a period of time, at the end of which you have to jump into a volcano.
Abe Vigoda's in this, right?
Yes, as like one of the island guys.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's a delight because you get to see Meg Ryan 3 ways. And the last way is like her kind of like boat captain, rough and tumble type of thing, the one that eventually falls in love with Tom Hanks, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's another movie I'd like to revisit because it has been since 1990 since I've seen this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a memorable title. Obviously, I remember just like it's easy to refer to this movie, but I don't know if I even remember very much about it at all, other than who was in it.
It's such a stupid premise, and I remember it being, even as young as I was, I remember it being laughed off as being just a stupid movie.
Well, I think it's trying to be allegorical. There's even a part in the beginning when like the fluorescent lights are like flickering and beating him down, and he's picking at his shoe, and he says something about losing his soul. It's a little heavy on the allegorical stuff.
Yeah.
But super charming. I bet I haven't seen it since late 90s. But at that point, we were proud, Josh and I, that we were the only people who knew this movie and liked it. But I bet if I watched it today, I'd be like, not quite as good as I remember. It's still probably better than its reputation.
Yeah.
So,
Barrett has talked about the Bonfire of the Vanities, and we'll skip on over to Radio Flyer. I don't know if I saw this movie. I don't think I did.
Oh, is he only in it as a little bit, as like an older version of one of the main characters?
Of Elijah Wood, yeah.
So I probably don't even think of this as a Tom Hanks movie.
No, definitely not.
I remember the movie coming out because fucking everybody had one of those red wagons, but
it's a tough movie. it's a tough movie in certain respects because their stepfather, Elijah Wood, and his brother is abusive towards them, especially his stepbrother. But this Radio Flyer, this like wagon, is their escape, and so it does kind of warm your cockles. your heartstrings and stuff like that, to where warm your heartstrings. Talk about mixed fucking metaphors right there.
Yeah,
you were better off with cockles.
Yeah, I think that's actually the right thing. It just didn't seem like the right thing to say.
But yeah, no, it does have its moments of very tender drama. But yeah, it's tough to watch. But yeah, Tom Hanks is the guy who's telling the story later on.
Yeah. Then he would work with Penny Marshall again on A League of Their Own. This stars Gina Davis and Rosie O'Donnell and Madonna.
A little against type for him. I guess not, because he'd done some of the grosser stuff, but he's grouchy in
He's
this.
a drunk asshole.
And he has some mean moments.
Yeah, he's a drunk asshole for sure.
Yeah, I liked this movie a lot.
Yeah?
I don't think I like it as much anymore.
Oh, really? Every time I watch it again, it gets more charming to me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
I feel like it's probably still just as good. I haven't seen it in a while, but I get the sense that it's not like horrible or anything. Like it's not a relic.
No.
It's not a relic.
Definitely, and probably because it's a period piece set in the World War II, I think. Where
yes.
The women are playing because the men are off to war.
The men are off to war. The women are creating their own professional league. And they get these like old, like washed up manager types like Tom Hanks to manage the teams and everything. His introduction to this team is to come in and pee forever.
Tom Hanks
peeing.
We should have kept a running tally.
I don't know if this is the first of the many of the peeings, but like
I guarantee you there's a peeing scene in Big somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
It's gotta be.
Probably is.
I may have mentioned this before, but what I really like about this movie may have been because it's a female director. their relationship, Gina Davis and Tom Hanks, never turns romantic.
Right.
Even there's a great scene when they're on the tour bus where he comes over. They're the only two that are up.
Oh, and they start singing Tiny Dancer.
They start singing Tiny Dancer, and then they start whacking each other off.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where that came
Yeah,
from.
I don't either.
But
And he's like, I want to go home. And she's like, you are home.
it's not romantic. But she's even looking at a picture of her husband who's deployed, and he's asking about him and stuff like that. And it's just this nice, like, friendly moment between colleagues who are becoming friends and stuff like that. And yeah, I like this movie a lot.
Yeah, I do too. It's like I said, it's been forever since I've like watched this from beginning to end, but I've seen pieces of it, in the past few years, and I'm like, oh, this is still good. I think
This is flashback to when Rosie O'Donnell was like an actress. Like when she got the talk show, she kind of put that on hold. She was a good actress.
Yeah, I thought so.
She and Madonna
She
were
was good
really
in Beautiful Girls.
Exit to Eden.
Yeah, Exit to Eden. Everybody's good at Exit to Eden.
Well, this is one of it's early in Madonna's acting career too, if I remember right.
Yeah, she had a few in the 80s, sort of capitalizing on her Material Girl.
And then Dick Tracy.
Yeah, and Dick Tracy. But this is maybe one of the first time. I don't like saying that, but this is one of the first times it feels like she played a character that wasn't just Madonna. Although she's pretty Madonna in this.
She is. What happens if I slide into third base and my bosoms fall out?
Yeah, exactly.
That always happens.
But these women are, they're trying to get they're trying to be recognized as legitimate and everything, while their husbands are in like severe danger overseas. And so you see a lot of that too, where like news from overseas comes over and it devastates the entire,
because one of them's husband died.
Yeah, it's great because Hanks's character goes over and grabs the telegram, and they don't know who he's going to. And there's this nice, like, kind of chilling moment where, he hands it over, and at that point, he's ingratiated himself. And it's a great scene. Yeah, I like this movie a lot.
Yeah, John Lovitz is in this.
David Strathairn
David
is in it.
Strathairn is the one who's trying to make it legit.
Yeah. He plays a really cool character that he believes, like, in this as an actual league. And it has no chance of succeeding. And even at the end of it, they shut it down.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's very cool.
How many old-timey baseball movies is he in? Because he's in 8 Men Out.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was just thinking that. I was like, he's in that too. They might be the only two.
Might be,
but it is kind of funny in that same era he was like that. But this has that line. I know Jeremy and I say all the time, but like there's a point where they're playing not professional baseball, but they're playing some sort of like low D League type of stuff or whatever. And Lovitz, who's the money man, I guess, or the person who's trying to recruit players for this league and everything, is like you get this such and such money for playing this, and Lori Petty's like, it's like, we only make blah 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 here in Derry, and Johnny Lovitz is like, well, this would be more.
Go home, give the wife a little pickle tickle, and call it a day.
Then we have Sleepless in Seattle. This is the second and most famous Hanks Meg Ryan team up. Nora Ephron is behind this one.
Just looking at this is the end of, and actually this is a transition because this is not straight comedy, but this is kind of the end of straight up comedic Hanks. Because he goes full drama from pretty much all from here on out.
I mean, he's always charming and has some moments of levity, but he is a dramatic actor today. And in the first third of his career, it was almost all comedy.
Yeah, Sleepless in Seattle is definitely a big turning point. He's obviously going to have a much bigger turning point later in the year, but Sleepless in Seattle, I believe you would call it a Christmas holiday movie, but I think it came out in the summer.
Horses, yeah.
Ding-a-ling-a-ling.
Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Is it Bill? Okay, so in Sleepless in Seattle, Meg Ryan leaves Bill Pullman for Tom Hanks. In A League of Their Own, Gina Davis's husband is played by Bill Pullman.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And While You Were Sleeping.
Right. So true. Yeah, Sleepless in Seattle, Tom Hanks plays a guy, his wife has died, and he's trying to get back on the horse, essentially. He's got a kid who's one of those precocious type kids and everything. But there's a show that people call in to tell them like, they're like, what kind of life they're having, and they're having need some advice, that type of thing. And he calls in and talks about his wife that has died, and his kid sort of helps him out too. I think he's the one who calls first.
The kid's the one that calls first.
These shows used to be fucking everywhere, by the way. The advice shows where everybody would tell their sob story.
Yeah. And so he finally gets him on the phone, and Hanks tells a story about his wife that is, like mythical, essentially. Meg Ryan, who's in a completely different part of the country. Is she in Seattle?
No,
he's in Seattle. He's in Seattle, and she's in
like New York or Connecticut or something.
Yeah. That's why they call him Sleepless in Seattle. He can't get to sleep.
Rosie O'Donnell also pretty good in this movie.
Yeah, she is.
So Meg Ryan hears this, and she realizes that the relationship she's in is not what this guy has described. So she gets obsessed with trying to find out who Tom Hanks is the entire time. Even goes all the way to Seattle and like sees him from afar.
She's some kind of writer or something, because she fabricates like she's going to do a story about this guy from this radio show that has gone viral in a pre-internet world. Because if I remember right, hundreds of women are sending mail to Tom Hanks after this show, and proposals and whatnot. Yeah, it's really charming. I really like it. I think it's pretty crazy.
It's become a little bit overrated over time.
I think so because I think originally we viewed the film from Meg Ryan's perspective, and everybody wants to believe that a fantasy adventure to find true love like that is possible. If you view it from Tom Hanks's perspective, it's almost a horror movie.
Yeah. Dude,
he goes all the way.
Being stalked by Meg Ryan in 1993 is a horror movie.
He goes all the way to the Empire State Building. They bump into each other, and the movie ends suggesting happily ever after. And I'm like, that's fucked up.
No, they don't bump into each other. Like, he knows that she's going to be there, right?
Whatever. The point is, they see each other and they smile, and the movie ends. And it's like, okay,
it's
now
unfair
they're
to remember, though.
Well, yes, but it's still stupid.
There is a part though where she shows up in Seattle, and like
yes, and stands across the street from him.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a moment of recognition, I guess, or something, but they don't know. She knows, but he doesn't.
But she feels dumb. Then she goes back home.
Yeah. And Rosie O'Donnell plays her best friend, I believe, and is like, and she tells her, I'm obsessed with this guy. Is that crazy? And she goes, no, I don't think it's that crazy, or whatever. It's like, okay.
Well, there's this one time many years ago that I wanted to get some weed, and I didn't have any, and I didn't know anybody who had any, but I had an internet. And I got on a Yahoo chat room, and I met a guy who said, I'll sell you weed. I'm not a cop. I live 3 exits down from you. And I drove all the way down there to this apartment complex before I realized this is really fucking dumb. Yes. And I left.
Yes.
That made more sense than these two in this fucking movie ended up together.
By the way, she's from Baltimore. This is where she
went. Connecticut, Baltimore,
yeah,
same
I didn't
diff.
think that she was actually New York, but she was across the country when it happened. Then we have Philadelphia. This is if you want to talk about Hanks doing a complete transition from his comedy manic days, everything, this is it. It doesn't get more drama than this.
Neil Young does not sing any louder and higher than he does on the soundtrack to this song.
That's true.
This movie.
That's true.
City of brotherly love.
Yeah.
Stay close to me.
So this is his song was called Philadelphia, right?
No, Springsteen's was.
No, his was called Philadelphia. Springsteen was Streets of Philadelphia.
You're right.
That's a great Springsteen song,
Spin
too.
Doctors. Have you ever seen The Rain on that soundtrack?
And it's not bad.
It's not bad. No. I mean, that's a great song. Anybody that covers that song is going to be all right.
Yeah.
What we have in this movie, in the early 90s, it was easy to probably label this as some gay drama of some sort. But it's really not accurate to call it that. I think in the early 90s, though, it was kind of considered that. He is a lawyer. He's a damn good lawyer who's been hired by one of these best law firms ever type of place, head by Jason Robards in a great role. He contracts AIDS, and I think it's I'm trying to remember if he's had it and it's just now starting to show.
Yeah. I don't know if he knows he has it, but yeah, there's like a lesion or whatever.
Yeah, a lesion pops up. Now nobody knows he's gay, but he knows that the people he worked with, they're not down with that.
Mm-hmm.
And they put him on a case that is their number one case, their like biggest money making, huge publicity case, because he's the best. And then suddenly, when people start noticing lesions, he gets fired. And it's a whole big, huge courtroom drama, essentially, is what this movie is, even though there's a lot more to it than that even. He can't find a lawyer at all who will touch this case. And he finds somebody who's just down on his luck enough in Denzel Washington to help him with this case. Denzel Washington's not on board with him either. That's another thing. Denzel Washington is kind of like, I'll take this case, but everything that you do outside of this, I'm not down with that. But we could get this is one of Denzel Washington's best.
Oh, absolutely.
As well. Hanks, you start seeing him just getting emaciated and everything. Like it's not to the point of just like, oh my gosh, it's a horror movie or anything, but you can see him very physically sick as this movie moves on, and he may not even make the end of trial. That's how bad he is. But this is a great movie. Mm-hmm. This is great. Jonathan Demme did this. This was his follow up to Silence of the Lambs. Yeah. This is a fantastic movie. I think we've recommended it a couple of times on this podcast. We'll recommend it highly again.
Yep.
It's that good of a movie.
Yep.
Forrest Gump. This is
conversely.
This is height of Tom Hanks's popularity, I would have to say.
So this is second Oscar in a row, right?
This is second Oscar in a row. And this I read this book and saw this movie. They obviously cut some things out of the book. The book, he goes to space, which is funny because Apollo 13 comes out after this. But Forrest Gump, what do we think about this movie today?
Sucks.
Yeah. I don't hate it, but I hate watching it.
Well, that's a good way to put it. This movie has not aged well for me. It's we didn't start the fire, the movie. We said it when we sinned it, and it feels more about playing the hits of history than it does. Like, Forrest Gump is not a character. He doesn't really grow and change. He's just there through all the stuff that Zemeckis wanted us to relive. And, it doesn't hold up for me at all.
And you didn't like the Jenny character.
No, Jenny's... I gotta be careful with my language, but Jenny's essentially Satan.
Yes.
She's had her own hardships, and I'm not saying she hasn't earned the right to deal with them in her own ways that may sometimes be erratic, or she's the devil.
Yep.
I'm not down with this movie. When I saw it, I remember it was so buzzed about. Like, fucking, this was one of those where your dental hygienist was like, "You seen that Forrest Gump yet?"
Yep.
Because everybody was seeing it and falling in love with it because everybody loves nostalgia, and that movie is just nostalgia. Hey, remember the peace-loving 60s? That happened. Here, he was there. Remember ping pong? Hey, he was there.
Remember ping pong?
Yeah.
Remember Watergate? He was there.
Yep.
I just, there's no narrative there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. You were the two that were on the Sins video for this, right?
I wasn't. You were on there.
I definitely was because I got told I had to cut a couple of Jenny Sins. It might have been Dicer.
Might have been Dicer. Yeah. I was not on this. I haven't seen the movie in a while, but I can totally see, looking back on it, as it not being a very good movie anymore. I do remember though, 1994. That was the that summer was ridiculous. That was Lion King, Forrest Gump, True Lies. All these were coming out. Yep. They were just huge movies, and Forrest Gump just trumped them all essentially.
The theme song, the main theme from the score is great. That opens with the feather and
it's Silvestri, I think, right?
Yeah. All of Zemeckis, I think, is Silvestri, except for maybe a couple of exceptions. But I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember liking this enough to say that I if you ask me, just gun to my head, I'm like, yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
But I don't. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those movies that I remember some. Yeah, it's 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's a beast.
Then Apollo 13. This is one of my favorites. This is him teamed up with Ron Howard again. But this movie is just so good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Can't stop watching it every time it comes on.
I'm telling you, it is one of the hardest to flip away from, because I probably had it on. Now, granted, I always have the TV on while I'm working or writing or what have you, but it's probably been on 4 or 5 times in the last 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And there's usually stuff I haven't seen on other channels. It might even be something wicked awesome on another channel, but it just sucks you the fuck in every time.
This and The Martian, and I've gotten your addiction for the Martian, but like I don't know if it's problem-solving movies or space movies or both or whatever it is, but I can't stop.
I saw a video somebody on Facebook had sent me, somebody who went through the history of this and everything. There are, of course, a few things that they changed from the real story and everything, but for the most part, they really tried to get everything right.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing that stands out in this. Nothing seems like overly bullshitty.
Right. Right.
And the scenes, even though the Ken Mattingly thing, the Gary Sinise, where he's like going through all these different scenarios to figure out how he can transfer the volts over to this and trying to get this. Apparently that was something that they had already solved long before they even got up there, because they knew they actually got these scenarios written down already. But it's fascinating in the movie. It's one of the best scenes of the movie, and that's something that they added to it. This movie is just, it's so good.
Yep.
How does Ron Howard make this movie?
I don't know. I think when you got the perfect cast, the perfect script, and the perfect story, I guess, he is certainly capable enough to make that work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we have, we'll talk about all 4 Toy Stories all as one thing here. Toy Story came out. It was revolutionary. 1995. No movie, I believe, had been completely computer generated at this point. Although there were some, I think they had put some computer things had been implemented, but this is the first one, I think, that just went completely. At least it's the first huge one. It's the first huge CGI.
Yeah,
animated.
and if you look at it now, if you compare 4 to 1,
Jesus,
they've improved so much.
Yeah.
In terms of how realistic they can, even a world like Toy Story that's not supposed to look photorealistic, but Pixar's improved a lot. But when this came out, it was mind blowing. We'd never seen anything like this, and to boot, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was charming. It had a lot of great voices. It was very inventive and clever. I remember very vividly, I watched this movie at the Harding Mall before I ever lived in Nashville. We were down here on some kind of fucked up spring break or something. It was snowy as hell.
Fucked up spring break.
I took 2 spring breaks to Nashville with Josh, and they were both fucked up. But I remember watching it and loving it. It's so good.
The first time I watched this, I had food poisoning, and I was puking my guts out as I was watching this movie, and I've never seen it since. The first one, I've never seen it since, because I have that association with it.
Wow.
I know it's good.
Well, no.
I remember it, and I've seen scenes from it, but I've never watched it all the way through again because it brings back that visceral experience.
That's crazy. Oh, well.
Ever since, now the sequels are all super excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I think Toy Story 2 may be I don't know. Toy Story 2, each Toy Story after this has a larger message that they're trying to get across. I can't Toy Story 2 is more about what? Is it more about you can find a home anywhere and it doesn't have to,
Well, and it's also a little bit about play with your toys, don't leave them in boxes just to make money off of them.
Right.
Because that collector, that Wayne Knight guy, is like, he's selling them to highest bidders, and it's lost the spirit of what the toy really means.
Toy Story 3 is more about humans letting go of their toys.
Mm-hmm.
Toy Story 4 is more about toys letting go of their humans.
Mm-hmm.
And Toy Story 4... I recently saw this again because I was under the influence of edibles when I watched it the first time. Toy Story 4 is really good. Now it's got all this. The only problem with the Toy Story sequels is they all have the same issue, right? Somehow they get outside the house. They're trying to save someone who has gotten outside of the house.
Mm-hmm.
and then the adventure starts, and you're like, okay, I've seen this. They have to find ways to make sure they don't get caught, and they're always in some big store at some point, and they have to run from the store. And then by the end of it, there's a big, huge message and everything that's like, oh, this tied everything together really well. But, like you're saying, I don't know if we need any of these sequels, but each one of them in their own way has a message that's good by the end of it that elevates them above typical animated.
Yeah, no,
movies.
I agree. Well, they kept the quality up with those movies, whereas the Cars sequels, they just got worse and worse.
Well, yeah, story-wise. I mean, the looks-wise and the Cars sequels are fantastic, but I think that's where they really put their stuff. My favorite of this whole thing, understanding and agreeing that it's unnecessary, my favorite is 3. 3 just hits you in the gut. It's got a great story. It's very deep, and the animation
Have you
spectacular.
seen 4?
I haven't seen 4 yet either.
Yeah, now the thing that you're talking about with the detail and everything, your jaw's gonna drop
I bet.
at how good it is, especially at the very beginning when they're trying to save the little motor car thing from because it's raining, and the rain is unbelievable how they drew that. The colors are amazing. Then there's a point, there's a lot of sections in an antique store, and just how detailed that antique store is going to blow your mind. I was just sitting there just going, there's never been another animation company that would put this much, like just the tiniest things to make that antique store look so.
There are sections of The Good Dinosaur that are photorealistic with the water and the mountains. That's a garbage fire of a movie that I want to bludgeon to death, but it looked fucking real. It looked like film a couple of moments in there.
Yeah. On to Tom Hanks' directorial debut, and he's also in it as Mr. White, That Thing You Do. Famously had an attached trailer on Independence Day, and I'll never understand why, but this movie's great.
Yep. Yeah, it probably did because Tom Hanks is a huge star, and he probably said, "This is my first directorial debut, so put all your marketing money behind it."
But it's the weirdest thing. Like, people were going to watch this big alien space opera.
Yeah.
And That Thing You Do, which has got a preview that I would consider bad in front of Independence
It's almost
Day.
the whole song too, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you're annoyed with the song before the movie even comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it comes out of nowhere, and suddenly now you're watching this fucking big, huge alien movie afterwards. But That Thing You Do, great movie.
It's fantastic. If you've ever been in a band or wanted to be a singer or an instrumentalist, I think this movie is gonna touch your feels and in a good way.
Was there anything remarkable about the direction? Because he's only directed one other movie other than this.
Yeah, which was Larry Crown.
Yeah, which I haven't seen,
Yeah.
but it's a good movie, I think, overall, but like I don't see any like real flourishes or anything like that.
No,
right?
the place where there's a couple scenes where it really pops, and it's usually the montages. There's that they're on the state fair tour, and they're playing that "Come On, Pretty Baby," and it's showing you montage stuff of them goofing around while on tour, having fun. But it's also interspliced with that live in the round concert footage at the state fair. And I feel like you can see his direction there.
I see.
Because it even zooms in on Mr. White right when they hit that
where
pow,
he's
and
like,
he does that arm
yeah.
thing. And it's so fucking endearing because he's been kind of a hard ass to these kids. But that is the moment we realize, he really does enjoy the music. But yeah, for the most part, it could have been directed by anybody, I'm sure. So Larry Crown's probably the same way.
Yeah. Then we have he did the miniseries From the Earth to the Moon. I still haven't gotten all the way through this miniseries, but he does do a sort of a walk and talk introduction to each episode as he comes in. And this is just about the beginnings of the space program and all the major highlights of everything that happened back in the 60s and 70s and everything. The episodes that I've seen are great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I gotta check it out.
Yeah, it's good. It's Band of Brothers good.
Yeah.
It just doesn't get anywhere near the play.
Then Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
It
was awesome.
Yeah.
How did it lose the Academy Award?
I believe the story is that
Shakespeare in Love?
Well, it was
Weinstein?
I believe the story is that the Weinsteins and Miramax lobbied really hard and got what they wanted out of this.
God, but they're going up against Spielberg and who released it? Was it Universal that?
And then Spielberg.
Saving Private Ryan was DreamWorks, I believe.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, DreamWorks, and you got Katzenberg, and you got World War II, and you got Hanks, and
because I that's the story that I've heard, is that they were able to successfully lobby that while Spielberg should just go ahead and get his award, even though he had already gotten one for Schindler's List, he should get it. That they wanted Shakespeare in Love, and like I don't know, it could be one of those things where you have so many votes for Best Picture. I think everybody votes on Best Picture. There was a huge cast in Shakespeare in Love. There was a huge cast in Saving Private Ryan too, but that it just somehow got to the top. You got to also think that year you had Saving Private Ryan and The Thin Red Line, both war movies. And then you had 3 Elizabethan era movies, Shakespeare in Love, Elizabeth, and actually it was 3 World War II movies. Life is Beautiful was the other one.
Oh, yeah.
And you probably had a lot of split between genres and all that happened. And then Saving Private Ryan just sort of whittled its way down at some point. But Saving Private Ryan is the best movie.
Well, and it was also a pretty hard R rating.
Yes.
Which is a tougher sell, I think, to the Academy wide, but also let's not feel too bad for Spielberg, because later in life he lobbied pretty hard against the Behind the Candelabra and then Roma, and so all these power people in Hollywood have tried to keep other people from winning awards they want to win.
Oh, for sure. I mean, but if you want to talk about integrity, this was the first time I thought the Oscars I was sitting there just going, what? Whatever your voting system is, it's broken.
Well, yeah, and I even saw Shakespeare, because it's Tom Stoppard who did Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, and so he was on my radar anyway. And I even watched that movie and liked it plenty. It was never a Best Picture.
Nope.
In my mind, not even once.
Not even when
that Dame Judi Dench
had her.
Yeah,
the timing of that was awkward.
Yeah.
They're going in opposite ways.
That's the girl who showed her bubbies. But yeah, Saving Private Ryan. He's really good in this. Obviously, I don't think he's the main. I mean, he's not the main attraction for a movie like this.
No, the setting, the direction really is
setting, direction, the action, the story of it is, the Matt Damon is playing a guy where all of his brothers have died, and so they're going out to find this one guy, and the story goes that Damon was doing his Goodwill Hunting stuff while they were all off doing a real boot camp stuff, and so they wanted to have like this real animosity once they finally ran into his
I had a fascinating conversation with Patrick from Modern Horrors privately about this very topic. We started off talking about The Shining and how it's difficult for some people to enjoy The Shining, knowing what they know now about some of the things Kubrick did with Shelley Duvall.
Shelley
Duvall, sorry. And then I started talking about Hitchcock and Tippi Hedren and the Birds, and how so many of our great directors manipulated their actors, and there's got to be a place somewhere where you draw that line. And then I brought up Spielberg and the Matt Damon thing, saying that's manipulation, but it's not abuse. It's not abusive manipulation. So where exactly do we draw that line? I ended up telling him I could probably do a whole podcast on this topic. Like, where exactly do you draw the line between that's too far and that's just clever? Like the alien chestburster scene was one I think is kind of on the line.
Yeah.
Because he only tells John Hurt that's what's going to happen. Doesn't tell any of the other actors. I could make a case that that's a traumatic event for somebody to experience that, not knowing it's going to happen. But it got the performances he wanted.
Yeah.
So how far is too far? Well, topic for another day. Maybe.
I don't know, man, because whatever he did, that part of the movie is probably my favorite part of the movie when they finally find Ryan, because he's pissed off. He's done nothing wrong.
Right.
He's out there fighting with his platoon or whatever. He wants to stay, and they're pissed off at him because we fucking lost, at this point, 2 people to save your ass.
Yeah.
Fuck you for saying that you want to stay here.
Yeah.
Your ass is going home.
Edward Burns.
Yeah. I mean,
listen here, asshole.
That dynamic is fantastic. It got exactly what he wanted out of it.
Maybe. I mean, again, they're actors. They're professional. It's like Chris's philosophy on football, or that one team didn't get up for it enough.
Yeah.
And but the professional actors probably could have acted like they harbored a grudge against Matt Damon's character without the boot camp trick. But everybody has their style.
Ever have the same experience I did with this movie, where there's a scene where they want to kill this one guy, this one German guy, but they let him go, and then later on think it's the same guy that stabs the Adam Goldberg character later?
Is it not?
It's not. It's not
I always
the same one.
thought it was the.
No, it's not the same guy.
Oh.
Now this could be one of those things where I feel like I've been in an alternate dimension, and you guys look this up and find out it is the same guy. And
I haven't seen the movie in probably 15 years.
There's a scene where they let a guy go, and everybody's like, "Why are you letting him go? He can just tell the Germans about it," and they sort of say, "Don't worry about it." Then later on, when they're in that battle with Damon and everything, there's a scene on the stairs where that guy another guy stabs Adam Goldberg, and then it's sort of this idea that, oh, they let that guy go, and then it came back to bite him on the ass, but it's not the same guy.
There's actually another part in that same scene where Jeremy Davies cowers by the stairs and lets the guy who stabbed him go, and I think he comes back to kill another one of them. He does
go back to kill to finally get up the nerve to kill that guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was something that I always thought. I thought it was like, oh, they let him go, and then he came back and bit him in the ass later, but it's not the same guy.
One of the things that I can't stand to watch happens in Snowpiercer, happens in this movie, is the slow stabbing in the chest where the person is still alive and is trying to prevent it, but it keeps going. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You want to know what's hard? I was watching The Last Samurai the other day. You ever seen that flick? Tom Cruise?
A long time ago.
It's much better than a movie that nobody ever talks about that movie.
Morgan Freeman was in that.
No, he's not. But at the end,
he played The Last Samurai.
At the end, Ken Watanabe is ready to die, he asks Tom Cruise to help him, and Tom Cruise basically stabs him a little bit, and then Watanabe grabs the thing and pulls it in even further, and there's a squelching noise that's very uncomfortable. And I was like, I didn't need all that.
Oh my God, it happens in The Strangers too. The Liv Tyler, James Martin, Scott
Speedman.
Yeah, it happens in that. I can't take it.
Yeah, I don't like it.
That same year, he did You've Got Mail, which was his third foray with Meg Ryan. This is a remake of The Shop Around the Corner. Hanks and Meg Ryan in sort of the early days of the internet, where you could get on. They're getting on these American online chats, and both Hanks and Ryan have met each other through the internet, the magical tool that is the internet. This movie is way out of date.
Oh, super shit.
Doesn't hold up at all. You saw this fairly.
You know how out of date it is? It's about a little tiny bookstore being put out of business by a Barnes & Noble type store.
Yes.
And now Barnes & Noble is going out of business.
Exactly. Being put out of business by basically the tool that they're talking to each other
exactly.
with. Yeah, so they've met each other that way. She runs this small bookstore called the Shop Around the Corner. It's a children's bookstore. He is this mega Fox Books. He's putting in this big store right across the street from it, and so they at first they meet each other, and they don't know who each other is. But he's gone onto her store because they just happen to be in the area, and he's got his niece and nephew. Well, actually, it's
one of them's like his brother.
One of them is his brother, but it's like his
uncle.
And then another one is like his aunt, but she's way younger. And
I forgot that part.
No, it's messed up.
Yeah, and he brings them in, and that's how he meets her the first time. But this conversation between them is obviously turning into something else. They're obviously in bad relationships. Meg Ryan's with Greg Kinnear, who barely registers as human in this movie. He hates technology for some reason. No reason at all given, but he hates it. and he wants to do all his stuff on typewriters and all that, and it's just he's every time he's on screen, it's like, technology. Well, man, technology sucks, and he's terrible. And Parker Posey plays Tom Hanks's girlfriend in this, and she is an awful person. Parker Posey's basically playing the role that she always seemed to play in these type of movies. Parker Posey's like a very likable actress, but like she always was in these like roles where she would be that agitator of some sort, and she's barely registers as human. So anyway, yeah, they're talking online. They don't know who each other is, and then they decide they're going to meet finally, and Hanks sees who it is. And then he realizes, I don't know if I want to meet this. I don't know if I want to meet her. Then he decides to meet her without telling her that he knows who she is. And
yeah, he acts like he just happens to be at the same restaurant where she was going to meet dude. My wife watches this movie 6 times a year, by the way. And yeah, he goes in and basically makes fun of her for getting stood up. Yeah, he's an asshole in that moment.
He's such a dick, and he keeps trying to find out a way. How do I eventually at first I think he wants to do it on his own merits. He wants to have her fall in love with him without knowing that he's the one she's been talking to. And I think that's what that whole last 20-30 minutes of that movie is him pretending that he's not the guy, and then striking up a sort of friendship with her,
giving her advice about the guy she's emailing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they're like professional rivals, right? Don't they hate each other?
Yeah.
But I mean, her shop has no chance.
Okay. No, she's destined to close.
Yeah.
Even though a bunch of people show up to the.
There is a dumb scene in this movie where like after Hanks tells her that she needs to go to the mattresses, like in The Godfather, she calls out the media, and Greg Kinnear is like a guy who writes for the New York Post or something. She even asks him, "Would it be a conflict of interest if you wrote about my shop?" Answers yes, but like he writes the article anyway. And then there's like this big media blitz, and you see her store is filled with people, and then she's even out on her soapbox talking to people, and everybody's like, "Yeah, fuck Fox Books, they suck." And then like she goes over to Gene Stapleton and like. She's like, so no difference? And she's like, not a difference at all. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that movie writes itself essentially. Right?
Yep.
We have talked about Toy Story 2. We have talked about The Green Mile. This is our first little crossover.
Oh yeah.
We did Stephen King. We talked about The Green Mile there. If you want to hear any more Green Mile stuff, go to that Stephen King podcast, which was 2 episodes ago.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then we have Castaway. Which is, I believe this is 2000, and this is going to end our podcast for Tom Hanks today. We'll have a part 2
because he's such a prolific motherfucker.
He is. Unfortunately, these are all of his best movies too. Like,
oh yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
we'll have our part 2, and it'll be the latter stages.
There's some gems in there. This is talk about like a perfect rewatchable movie. Mm-hmm. This is up there with Apollo 13 with me.
Yeah.
Well, and we said this when we send this. It needs a special kind of actor if you're going to stay on one guy on an abandoned, deserted island for 40 minutes of your movie straight. It needs somebody with the charisma. It needs somebody that can do drama and comedy. And there are many moments in this movie where Zemeckis just sets the camera down and lets Hanks act, and it's great. It's great. Now, I've got issues with this movie. I think it needs to end way the fuck before it does. All of the stuff with going back to see Helen Hunt, and now she's with Chris Noth, and woe is us. And then they have the awkward conversation. So she didn't come to the thing to greet you, so he goes to the house, and they kiss in the rain, and then I hate all of that.
You hate all that?
I hate all of that.
I think I don't disagree with you, especially the kiss in the rain. But also, I think it's a nice little coda to figure out how things have actually been impacted outside of himself, because we've been so insular to this character the whole time.
Well, that's sort of my problem, is that I never cared about the outside shit. You didn't have to open with him having a girlfriend in Helen Hunt. You didn't need that.
But that's one of those things that kind of keeps him going when he's sending
and then when he gets home, he doesn't get her.
I know.
It's
I like that. I would rather that happen than if she comes running back and
listen,
embraces him at the
I
airport.
could throw a rock and find somebody that's got a story of lost love that I'd rather hear. I don't need to see a movie to see that kind of disappointment.
But that's not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is the island, his experience, him getting off of it.
Stop.
Now,
Credits.
I could do completely without the whole fanfare of him getting back and stuff like that. That goes on too long. I do like the shot of him staring at that seafood tower.
Yes,
It's just got this ridiculous amount of fish and meat and all
I
that
can even buy, if you want it to be him on the plane with the FedEx guy telling him we got the media, yada yada. By the way, Helen Hunt fell in love with some other dude and married him. That would have been fine. I didn't need to see her. I didn't need to see that reunion.
Yeah.
Because you have taken a resolution, him fucking willing himself off of that island, and then you cut out its knees with anti-resolution.
Yeah, I think I disagree on this one because I think that is something that a Hollywood movie we're so just like preordained to watch the happy ending happen, and it would be, I mean, it'd be perfectly acceptable obviously if he gets back, but I think the idea that it does suck so bad is something that really resonates with me, because I think that's something that we always deal with those type of things in life and everything. And by the end of it, he is at a literal crossroads. I mean, they lay that on pretty thick, but I like the idea of him, like, he can do anything he wants now.
He can, and she's moved on, and
Except for the kiss.
At the time, well, I kind of like that too. At the time, you're so rooting for this guy so hard that you almost like are like calling her a bitch for moving on and like, you know, going and marrying somebody else when they never found his body or whatever. No, she did the appropriate adult thing. She mourned him for a while. She fucking buried him. She actually says, like, I buried you, basically.
Yeah, and they weren't even married in the first place, right?
I think they were engaged.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
See, I'm okay with the details of his adventure not all ending with a happy ending, but I don't need those scenes. I feel like those scenes clog the momentum of the film.
I got you. And it does go on too long, I think. You know, they throw in that little line about the Titans and, like, you know, getting to the, it's like, all right. And then, you know, he does get to the literal crossroads and things like that. I think the kiss may not be. The kiss is okay to me because it shows that she still has unresolved feelings and she doesn't know what to think at this point. But yeah, I think it just goes on a few beats too long.
I mean, there have been movies that I feel like have dealt more straight on with the thought you were dead, married somebody else, and now you're home. There's that Tobey Maguire, Jake Gyllenhaal one with Natalie Portman.
Oh, is that? It's not Enemy.
No, but they're brothers.
It's in that same era, right?
Even Pearl Harbor has already done this, where we thought you were dead, so I moved on to this other guy. Like, I didn't feel like I needed that dabble bit of realism at the end of Castaway, a movie that was pretty good up until then.
Yeah. I don't know.
I will say we've said this before, but this was the year of Zemeckis giving away his entire movie twice.
Yeah. Oh, What Lies Beneath.
With What Lies Beneath and Castaway. But in Castaway, you watch the trailer, you know he gets off the island.
Yep.
Is that in the trailer?
Yep.
Yeah, he says, because they're on the plane and he's talking to dude and he's like, and the guy's like, yeah, and we had a funeral. And
Yeah,
he's like,
we
was
had a
there a
whole funeral.
casket?
No, yeah.
What was in it?
Yeah, what was in it? Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm looking for this Tobey Maguire, Jake Gyllenhaal movie.
I swear to God, I'm not pulling it out of my ass.
No, I can almost guarantee you're not, but I'm looking for it and I don't know what the name of it is.
It's going to be something bad like Home Fire's Burning or Since You've Been Gone.
It is Brothers.
Brothers.
Oh, that's right.
Brothers got a hug. But
Is
in
that a good
one,
movie?
No, but in that one, Toby comes back, and not only is he completely changed from the war, but he is pissed. that
I've
Jake
seen
has
this
slept with
movie.
his wife.
Yes. I've
He's
seen this movie.
Mad.
It's not a great movie, but
No.
it was all right.
Yeah, it was all right.
Oh.
Again, you know, this stuff happens. We bitched about it not happening in Endgame, where if you snap your finger and then brought all those people back, you just created a bunch of carnage because there have been new marriages and what.
Yeah.
So I can't. I do want my cake and I want to eat it too. But in
Yeah.
Castaway, I don't want that
You know-
tag on.
You know how long you could go on about all the things they fuck up in Endgame
Oh, Jesus.
by bringing all these people back.
Mhm.
I liked the bit.
You could go on forever.
I liked the bit somebody said about what if one of these people was in an airplane?
Yeah. We
Yeah.
added that at the end.
And would
I was-
somebody would they show back up in the middle of air and then fall 20,000 feet?
Yeah, and you can extrapolate that across anything. People who are riding in cars just suddenly just go on the road when they appear out of nowhere.
That
there's
poor bastard in the helicopter that crashed in the building with Nick Fury before he got dusted.
Yeah. Anyway, that's part one of the Tom Hanks discussion. I think we thought we could get through the whole thing, but there's still a lot. That was the most of his what we remember Hanks from. We'll remember Hanks for in his career. He's got a lot more after this, obviously, but we will do part two on the next episode.
That's a teaser, kids.
Yeah. Let's see. If you want to talk about this episode, go to SinCast presented by Cinemasins on Facebook, Cinemasins Twitter, Music Video Sins Twitter, Reddit, SoundCloud. If you want to go onto our Discord, I can give you a link through Facebook on the private messages, or you can go to Reddit and find the link over on the right side of the page there.
God damn, we got a lot of places that you can contact us. I mean, Jesus. Hot Jesus.
There are a lot of ways to come and talk about this very episode.
We're manning these things. It's like if you contact us on SoundCloud or Facebook or the Reddit or stuff like that, or even sometimes on Twitter, like you'll get a response. We like interacting.
It's not
with you people.
interns. Like,
Yeah,
we're not
definitely not.
passing this off to interns like certainly some well-meaning YouTubers probably do.
Yeah.
We like that part, so we do it ourselves.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
But that'll do it for this week. It's Chris Atkins and Jeremy Scott and Barrett Sher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com. Here's something that fucked with me last night. So to prepare for this podcast, I watched The Bonfire of the Vanities.
Yes.
I told my wife that we were doing Tom Hanks, and she was like, "Oh, I love Tom Hanks. Put him in anything, and put Morgan Freeman in anything." And I was like, weirdly enough, they're in Bonfire of the Vanities together.
Oh, interesting.
And she was like, "Well, Morgan Freeman's in everything. He's worked with every actor." And so my son was like, "What about Tom Cruise?"
Your son's right.
And I froze.
For what now?
Tom Cruise and Morgan Freeman, have they ever worked together? No.
Think about this.
Unless it goes way back.
Okay, I'm so glad you guys are having this reaction, because I figured that you guys would say either yes or no like that, definitively.
Well, I mean,
It took me forever to wrap my brain around
almost
this.
anything like that, though, is going to be something you got to think about, because they both have careers that span from the 80s on.
Right.
And they could be in a number of things where they just show up.
Like, you could tell me Morgan Freeman was somewhere in Rain Man, and I believe you.
Yep.
Just like, yeah, it's a background
I
character.
don't know.
Yeah, he was the doctor they talked to, and
But no, I don't feel it. Is there some kind of whammy coming?
There's a definitive yes or no coming.
So then it must be yes, since I said no, and you haven't
don't
said
say anything yet. I'm going to look it up on collaborations, but I'm cheating, but I just want to.
Oh, I know the answer.
But I don't
Okay.
want to be revealed
I got
that
you.
way.
I got you. I'm just surprised that I didn't know yes or no right off the top of my head.
Oh, fucking, I got it. That's cheating.
Oh, I'm
If
curious.
if it's a Spielberg film, that's cheating.
There are actually 2 movies.
Yes.
War of the Worlds.
One of them is a Spielberg movie, yes.
That's cheating.
Because he's narrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
Oblivion.
Which is so fucking right there in front of you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But Oblivion's not one of those movies that you easily just refer to.
No.
And when you think of that, you don't think about Morgan Freeman.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
in like 10 minutes of that
He's in
movie.
that-
He's in just a little bit, right?
Library scene when he like goes down into that buried library.
But then Morgan Freeman's character dies when they get attacked, because then it's Jamie Lannister that's the main underground person, mole person.
Oh yeah, Nikolai Coster-Waldau.
That's him.
I figured something like Morgan Freeman, Tom Cruise would be fucking easy to suss out. No, I spent like 15 minutes thinking about this, and it nearly broke my brain.
I think what would have happened if we had time to do it is I would have gone through a lot of big movies in the last 20 years, and I would have just gone to each one, and then I would have been like, okay, Oblivion. Yeah. Oblivion would have rang a bell. But
yeah. I mean, at one point, I almost convinced myself that Glory and Born on the 4th of July were the same movie. Like Glory on the 4th of July.
Right.
or Born on Glory.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what was Born on the 4th of July was about Vietnam, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
It certainly wasn't about the war for independence.
No. Oliver Stone had a Vietnam trilogy where he started with Platoon, and he had Born on the 4th of July, and then Heaven and Earth.
Did he direct Born on the 4th of July?
He did.
Oh, wow.
It's based on a book that dude...
Cruise is really good in that.
He really
movie.
is.
He got nominated for an Oscar. But it's based on that dude he plays book, I believe.
It's a good movie, isn't it?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you've never seen it?
No, I've seen parts. I've seen parts of it. There's a part, the only part for whatever reason I saw, I was flipping through, I guess, one day, and it was like towards the end, but like he has to use a catheter, and there's a part where, because I guess his parents are like real religious freaks or something like that.
That's how I remember it. Yeah.
And there's a point where Cruz is breaking down. He's like, it says in the Bible it's a sin to play with your penis. I sure wish I had one, and all that. And he's like pulling out his catheter and all this other type of stuff. And she's like, don't say that word in here. He's like, penis. Hard erect penis, Mom.
Penis, vagina.
Mm-hmm.
That's from Varsity Blues.
Oh, I thought you were about to go into a 500 Days of Summer thing.
What is the penis joke in 500 Days?
Zoe Deschanel and Joseph Gordon-Levitt are on that park that they're always at.
Uh-huh.
And the whole thing is to see how loud they can say it and keep chopping each other as how loud they can say it.
Yeah. Right.
So she's like, penis. And then he's like, penis.
So we played this game in college.
I did too.
My
in
friends
high
and I was that guy who didn't care if he lost.
Yeah.
So I'd always go up to a girl and be like, because a lot of my friends were girls. Hey, you want to play the penis vagina game? Okay, you go first. And she'd go, penis, and I'd go, vagina! I'd like scream it so that everybody would stare at us, and then I would run away laughing. That was the way I played that game.
This is in college?
Oh yes. Some say I have yet to mature. Yeah, we made a movie recipe with him.
Yeah.
The most disgusting movie recipe ever.
We all gagged, and it wasn't fake.
So you were there for that one,
Oh, he
right?
was there, yeah.
I was there, and there was a point where he wanted to get footage of me eating it. I don't know if he wanted me to actually eat it, but I actually eated it. And it was awful.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was so bad.
It's terrible.
I did nearly throw up.
Yeah, it's skaggy.
I had to stop it. I was like, oh, fuck. Oh, boy. Anyway, obviously can't